I don't even know. And
Hi everyone, I'm Joanna Strassburg.
I'm Dan Curley,
I'm Graeme Jupp. Hello.
and I'm Steve Hall. Hopefully, everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Welcome to
The
the
401.
401. Hi everyone. Today is well for us, today is Friday, July the 26th. For Steve and Graham, I believe it's Saturday the 27th already. Um,
Lucky. No.
well, I don't know. I'm not trying to wish away time just yet anyway. Um, but I want to welcome Steve and Graham to the show. It's nice to have you guys with us. Thank you. So Steve is our guest co-host tonight, and Graham is our special guest. Um, Everybody knows Steve. He's a regular on here, and Graham has written a lovely book. That's well, it's like an ebook, right, Graham?
That's
Um,
right. Yes. Thank you, Joanna, for having me along. And thank you, Steve, for your recommendation that I become part of the 401 some weeks ago now. But thanks for the referral. Yes, my ebook, as I call it, it's really just a PDF document that I have released 4 times now since 2022. So, yeah, we'll be have a chance to talk about a little bit more about that as we
we will.
progress through this meeting.
Um, you collect books. Dan and I collect books, and Steve writes books.
Yeah. Steve
We
has a
can have
couple
like that.
too.
We have that in common. Books. Um,
I wouldn't say I'm a collector as such, but I have been acquiring books now for 37 years since 1987. The first one was given to me as a Christmas present was Robert Ballard's The Discovery of the Titanic. And
that's one of my.
there weren't too many books around, of course, in the 1980s, but I acquired a few. And when I started working in 1989 and the money became available, I started buying quite a few more. So it's been a 37-year quest to date, and it shows no sign of stopping. My bookshelf.
That was one of my first ones too. We had something at my school called Scholastic Book Fair, where they would bring the books to your school and try to swindle money. I mean,
Yeah.
get the children to buy the books. So I would always look for the Titanic books, and that was one of the first ones. That and the little paperback edition of A Night to Remember. So as a little small child, I'm sitting here like reading, A Night to Remember, and looking at Bob Ballard's, wreck, you know, wreck discovery, and you know
Oh,
that that was a huge influence on my childhood. Definitely. So I totally understand where you're coming from, and it just
I
didn't stop.
I have often been asked by many, many people, how did my interest in the Titanic begin? The short answer is I don't know. I've always been interested in ships from an early age, passenger liners, sailing ships. And the earliest I can recall was seeing a book in my local library, which had an illustration in it of Captain Smith looking down into the bowels of the ship and all this water cascading in, which of course is
Mhm.
not what actually happened. But I've never since then seen that same illustration anywhere, and nor can I remember the name of the book I saw it in. But I have a very vivid memory of that one event, which I think
Mhm.
was probably the inspiration for my interest. And not long after that, I discovered the illustrated edition of A Night to Remember in the same library. And that almost became my Bible, probably the book I got out the library the most in my early years. But yeah, then my interest went to sleep a little bit in the early 80s, and then it was reawakened big time in September 1985 when the wreck was found. And so since then, it's been an all-consuming passion.
Now, did you ever add that to your personal library, the illustrated edition of
I
A
did.
Night to Remember?
Not for many, many years. I don't think I was able to get a second-hand copy until about 1995. Or the hardback edition that I remember in the library. But I think I acquired a paperback edition, a reprint of the illustrated edition in 1988 for the first time. So that was the first time I was able to get my hands on a copy. And I've since then been able to acquire second-hand copies of the original editions, both the American and the British hardbacks of 1955 and 56, respectively.
I have a copy of that. It took a while to get one that was reasonably priced. But the one I have is a library edition. I think that's why it was reasonably priced. But still, it's a lovely edition of that book. If anybody watching, doesn't have that one, it's just a really nice edition to have. I want to say hello to John Barris, who's watching, and William Barney, who's watching. Hello. Thanks for joining us tonight. If you guys have any questions for Graeme or for any of us, Steve Hall or anybody, just let us know. But we're talking about books this evening, preferably Titanic books. Graeme, do you pretty much just collect Titanic books, or have you found yourself gravitating to that, or do you have like other ships, or does it branch out? Or
I have now more than 300 books on passenger liners and cruise ships. So on top of the many hundreds I have on the Titanic, and of course the Titanic's mentioned in many, many other books, along with other liners. But yeah, I've built up a large library of mostly transatlantic passenger liner books. I'm not that interested in modern day cruise ships. I think some of them are quite ugly creations. The liners are the more graceful means of transport, of course, and I have a particular liking for the likes of the SS United States, the France of 1962, the two Queens, or three Queens really, and an earlier generation of ships that were built for line voyages, not so much cruising. So there's a large library of ocean liner titles, cruise ships. I'm also interested in the Second World War, Ernest Shackleton and the Endurance expedition to the Antarctic. I've just recently completed a PowerPoint presentation on that expedition. I do presentations to a variety of clubs around the Greater Wellington area. From time to time, I'm invited to be the guest speaker. So I'm able to share my interest in that way with a variety of groups and clubs, and generally the presentations go down quite well. One thing I find is that a lot of people know the basic story of the Titanic, but they don't know a lot about they didn't even know that she had two sister ships, for example. The general public, this is. So it's always nice to be able to enlighten people in that regard.
Or people insist that like the Lusitania was a sister ship, and you're like, no, it wasn't. That's what I run into. They're like, did you know the Lusitania was Titanic's sister ship? Yeah, no, it wasn't. Thanks for trying.
Some people, I think including members of my own family, have thought that the Titanic was the only ship with 4 funnels. If it's got 4 funnels, it must be the Titanic. But of course, there were 14 4-funneled liners in history, and not a lot of people know that either. Yeah, there's a lot of things that.
Or you tell like AI, you're like AI, like in Canva, I've tried to get the AI feature in there to generate a Titanic image. So I'll be like, create a Titanic image, and it comes out with 8 funnels, and I'm like,
really?
Yeah. Like some of the AI art and stuff, you end up with something with 8 or 6 funnels, and I'm like, what is going on here? So don't trust AI.
Certain things that you don't do you really? It's always amused me over the years that there have been musicals and stage shows based around the Titanic tragedy, and one of them, which has reappeared a lot, a poster promoting, I think it's a musical or a stage show, one of them, that the poster is the bow of the Queen Mary. It's pretty obvious that this large bow with the white streak on either side is the Queen Mary. And I mean, I even emailed someone once to say, this is not the bow of the Titanic. There are photographs around you can use, either of the Olympic or the Titanic, that will more accurately represent the ship, but they seem to stick with the bow of the Queen Mary. Yeah.
That's what I don't understand. How can people still be putting inaccurate things out there when there are experts around, like Steve Hall here, or historians, people like yourself, even too, Graham, that people can go to, like, hey, I mean, even and Steve can attest to this. When I'm going to post something, or if I'm working on something, I'll go, hey, can you look over this? Or can you just make sure that I did this correctly? Or before I go put this out in public, I don't want to look like an idiot. Can you just make sure that I did this right? I forgot to tell you.
I've done that too.
The thing I was working on for the new group that I had you look at, and you said send it to Bruce. So Bruce pops on last night. I don't know, it was about 2 a.m. He said, what do you want me to do with this? I said, well, I told you, I said, I want you to look at it. Why? I said, because I told you, I said, I'm going to put it in my new group. I said, I want to make sure it looks, okay. He's like, okay. And I was like, it's 2 a.m. I said, you can do it later. No, I'll look at it now. I mean, I could just, like, as I was reading his messages, I could hear it in Bruce's voice. I'm like, okay. I said, okay. So he comes back, some things, he sent back. I said, well, what am I supposed to do with this? And I said, what's wrong with it? And he was like, oh, well, you need to copy this, rewrite it like I wrote it. And he just came back with the funniest stuff, so he did tell me to fix a few things. Bruce Beveridge, he's just the greatest. I mean, he's just funny. He's like, now go to bed. He's watching, it's just the best.
I like to involve as many people as I can out there. It's relatively easy nowadays to contact various Titanic historians, writers, authors, researchers, either by email or Facebook, more so than it was years ago. So when I started my project in 2017, I was determined to involve as many people as I could, not only from the perspective of obtaining photographs or paintings to help illustrate the whole thing, because there's a lot of photographs about the Titanic around, and I didn't really want to be necessarily duplicating too many of them. So I tried to find all sorts of different photographs and paintings and illustrations to help illustrate the book. I didn't really even consider it was a book then. And then I've always been a stickler for the facts. I don't like making mistakes. I like to be able to define things quite purposefully. So I was determined to involve a wide range of people out there, and I've emailed various people or Facebook messaged various people like Don Lynch, George Behe, Greg Jasper, Bill Wormstead. The list goes on. There's a huge number of people I've been in touch with, and collectively they were of an enormous help to correcting my mistakes, which I'd made, factual things, or providing me with resources to go to, articles, whether they're published online or elsewhere. But I tried my utmost to involve as many people in the community as I could, who I knew had done some seriously good research over many decades. And they're all very helpful. I was amazed. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with asking for help, or for doing your thing, and then saying, hey, can you just look over this? And I think that's important, because I mean, why would you want to put something out there that's not right? And I did ask somebody that I just admire and respect so much. And he comes back with, I can't read this. He's like, the colors are all wrong. So I went back and redid all the colors, so that it was more legible. But I appreciate feedback like that, and I really do.
I don't really mind. I'm in my profession of map making for the New Zealand government. Detail is quite important. Accuracy is important. So I've always sort of grown up over 35 years of applying that rationale to my professional life. But yeah, when it comes to the Titanic now, especially in the last 30 years, there have been so many terrific books published on the Titanic that have whittled away a lot of these myths and legends. There are some very good resources to go to now, books that have been written by some seriously good researchers. And there's really no excuse really to make simple errors. If you're new to the topic, that's understandable. If you're writing about the Titanic for the first time, then probably some people are going to make errors in that. But yeah, there's a lot of very helpful people out there. And I had a tremendous feedback from all sorts of people who didn't mind me sending them, say, half a dozen new slides. Please read through them. It didn't, I mean, I don't write hundreds and hundreds of words for each slide. It's just something quick and easy to read. And they've come back to me usually by Facebook Messenger. I send them a PDF and they come back and they're either rewording things or just simple things like adding a comma here or changing this around. And if I could accommodate their suggestions within the amount of room I had, then I did so. And it made the world of difference. It really did. It was really useful to tap into that knowledge and that experience.
And the people that you mentioned, they are incredibly helpful. You know, I met each one of those people you mentioned, Don Lynch, George B., Bill Wormstead, you know, they can be very, very helpful. Very helpful. Steve's pretty nice too.
Yes. Well, funny enough, Steve, I was looking up just the other day, I was reading P.H. Nargelet's, the new, well, not new, but the book that was translated from French into English, and it's only been published this year, about his experience on the various expeditions over the years. And in there, very helpful, was the date, I think it was the 21st of June, 1993, when one of the Titanic's lifeboat davits was lifted from the ocean floor and subsequently restored and put on display at various exhibitions. And P.H. Nargelet had mentioned in there the weight of the davit. I think it was about 1.5 tons or something. But I think he mentioned, but anyway, I went to Titanic, the Ship Magnificent, to see in there if it had the weight of the lifeboat davit specified. And I couldn't find it, Steve. I couldn't find the weight. So I've since emailed the German chap. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Is it Johannes Georgiou? I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, but he's put me on to Gunter Babler.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steve?
Yeah,
that's the man. Yeah, he didn't have the answer, but he suggested I contact Gunter Babler, who might have some of the old Welland Davit Company documents and that going right back to 1910. I mean, I've got an approximate weight in there at the moment, but I want to try and get it from a definitive source, so I know that it's right.
We, you know, when we done Titanic, the Ship Magnificent, it was really only supposed to be just the one book, and we just, the information just kept coming in and in and in. And eventually, that I had said to Bruce, I said, you know, you can't have a book that's 900 pages. I said, it's ridiculous. I said, you either start cutting stuff out or you have 2 volumes. And that's what happened. But I think a lot of stuff was left out of it, you know, because by the time we were finished, we were all haggard, because there was, you know, Bruce, you know, and he was doing most of the work, and Daniel and Scott Andrews and Art. And after 2 years, we were pretty fed up with the whole thing, and blown so many published dates that in the end we started working on an index page or something. And all of a sudden, a set of index pages was going to be another 40 pages. And we just threw our hands up. But, you know, the weight of the davit, I don't know, if you ask Bruce, you might have a fair idea, I suppose.
Okay, I'll try. I mean, I do have the figure at the moment, but it's just that I think there was a bit of doubt about it. But I just wanted to go to a reliable resource. And don't get me wrong, Steve, those books are an absolute treasure to have. I mean, I've got all the volumes, the 3 different lots of them, and yeah, if you want to know anything technical, the answer generally is in them. Fantastic. Yeah.
I'll tell you someone who, you know, really would be really good at asking questions now is 2 or 3 guys from Titanic Honor and Glory.
Okay.
Kyle and Matt and Derek. I mean, those guys have picked up where we left off from TTSM and recreating the whole ship. So, you know, probably exterior, probably, I don't know, probably Kyle. He'd probably have a good idea, you know, what they are. But it's like anything when you're writing a book, there's a point where you've got to stop.
Yeah.
And you don't do anymore because you're either fed up with it.
I was not getting fed up with mine, but I was thinking once I got to, well, originally I was going to have 366 pages, so one for every day of the year. But then it kept on getting into the 400 plus, and then it went over 500, and I said eventually I'll stop at 712, the number of survivors. I thought, well, that's it. And then eventually it got up to 820 something, and now it's up to 927. So sooner or later I'm going to have 1,000 slides in PowerPoint. I just keep adding to it because there's still things either happening or I'm finding out more dates. And if it's something sort of quirky or different, I've got to have it in. It goes in. I don't. That's the great thing about keeping it electronic. I can keep adding to it.
Keep updating. I saw it the other day that I think I posted it on Titanic Reflections, the link to it. And just to get the URL right, I opened it. And when I opened the PDF, it said something like 920 or 950 pages. Yeah. And I thought, wow, look at all of those. It's come a long way since, well, you and I were, you know, just talking as you were talking with others. Seems like many years ago now that
I really appreciate your generosity, Stephen, making it available on your website and then sharing the links to other areas as well, because I'm not really able to, well, I can spread the word fairly well, but other people like yourself helping me out is very much appreciated.
Well, I thought that at the time when you started it, you know, you were trying to find something, you know, for every day. And, you know, I thought, I did have a look at things and I thought, well, you know, what happened on March the 1st, March the 2nd, March the 3rd, you know, what newspaper articles there were from, you know, out of Belfast Telegraph, or whatever their newspaper was at the time. And you did find a few quirky little bits and pieces. And as the years gone by, there's other people have found other information too. And we incorporated, me and Daniel, we actually sort of incorporated a lot of those little things in Titanic and photographs. You know, I wasn't actually sure when, you know, Olympic got back to Belfast in, you know, in March. So I think it went in the dry dock on March the 2nd, I think, on the tide, but it got there the night before, I think, and was tied up further up the Lagan, I think it was. But it's always interesting to see the different bits and pieces. Yeah. And then it's great that you put it together in a PDF file. Because you start reading stuff that you go, oh, I like that, and I didn't know that. And that value adds to what you've done. You know, it'd be great to see it, you know, in book form. Yeah. But there'd be a lot of sort of work and to try and get that together. So
I think
I was happy to help, and you know, for all the photos. And I had said to Bruce at the time, I said that you were doing this, and you know, typical Bruce. You know, if you asked him, he says, "Yeah, you can use it." You know, you know, he's like I am. You know, just use it. And most of the time, I don't really want people to, you know, credit say, "Oh, Steve," or you know, whatever. I mean, geez, I didn't take the photo and I didn't write the article in the Belfast Telegraph in 1912. So anyway,
no, I sort of tried wherever I could to acknowledge the original source of a photograph, a painting, whatever it was. I mean, there were, you know, hundreds of photographs, thousands that I've sort of downloaded from various websites and that, and often there's a credit there, but it's not harking back to the originator of the image. So all the Harlan and Wolff ones, I like to sort of credit properly to the Harlan and Wolff Collection National. I think they're now held by the National. Are they held by the Ulster Folk and Transport Museum?
Well, they were, when I originally started researching it, they'd been handed over from Harlan and Wolff to the Ulster Folk and Transport Museum. and then the UFTM, they started selling them, and I started buying photos. I think Daniel bought a lot of them. All the top researchers bought them, but I think the museums are all been incorporated into one unit now. So
Yeah, I
4
think
or
it's
5.
called the National Museums Northern Ireland, the overarching sort of body that incorporates various museums around Belfast
Yeah.
and that. Yeah.
But it was always interesting that it's because when I first started interested in the photographs, you know, I mean, I always thought it was sort of visual story, and I thought that'd be a good title for me. But somebody else has got it, so that's okay. They're more visual story than I am. But from my understanding, a lot of photos held by Harlan and Wolff were actually lost. There's a lot of missing ones, and only photographs remain of them. So I don't know what was during the Second World War that they were lost,
Yeah,
because they did bomb Belfast.
That's right. Yeah.
I think that there was a IRA attack actually at Harlan Wolff, and 1 or 2 explosions there, which damaged a lot of the photos, and ones that couldn't be you know, sort of put back together, they threw away. So
There were, I think, and when I was doing my research, there were certain events that I wanted to include, but unfortunately, I could not find either photographs of the person concerned or other images to help illustrate that particular slide. There was 1 or 2 incidents or testimonies at the British Inquiry involving a couple of British bureaucrats, to use a terrible term, and one of them made a comment about the lifeboats or life-saving capacity or something. I can't remember who it was, but I have not been able to trace a photograph of him, nor can I find a photograph of Francis Carruthers, the Board of Trade Inspector, who travelled on the ship from Belfast to Southampton. I recently read the article that someone had written for Voyage about the gentleman who was alleged to have been a passenger on the ship from Belfast to Southampton, Wyckoff Vanderhoff, some name like that, but it's now been essentially determined that he might have purchased his ticket in Belfast, but didn't, of course, board until Southampton. But anyway, on the voyage from Belfast to Southampton, we were 13 people who were effectively travelling as passengers, Harlan and Wolff employees. I think Carruthers was one of them, Edward Wilding, and others. So I wanted to try and form a slide around that particular aspect, given that these men were on board for official purposes, but not sort of travelling as crew. But I can't find a photograph of Francis Carruthers. Yeah, that's one of the ones I'd like to get.
I always think to myself that that would have been an interesting voyage from Belfast down to Southampton, and I myself and Ionis, which we were just talking about not long ago, and Dr. Paul Lee, we tried to work out, you know, a timeline and where it was, and all different articles, whether it was actually seen, you know, and we come together with so much information. But the trip down there from Belfast to Southampton, I mean, they did open the ship up and just let it go. I don't know, Mark Churnside might be better at this, but I think it nearly hit 24 and a half knots. But and they're not slowing it down because they ran into a rainstorm, fog or something, whatever it was, which slowed it all down. So, but what a shame they didn't take any photos on the voyage down. So maybe they did. I don't know. How many people had cameras back then? I mean, I don't know. So, but that would have been nice.
Yeah, that's right. But it's that sort of information that comes up. That article that was printed, it was on Encyclopedia Titanica, and I think it was in Voyage. I can't remember who wrote it, about the gentleman, Mr. Vanderhoff. Anyway, that inspired me then to replace the existing slide in my book with, I had to factor it in that he wasn't on board. I now accept that he wasn't. And I've rearranged that whole slide to take that into account. So it's things like that that will crop up from time to time that'll cause me to update what I've got and try and make it based on the research that's been undertaken quite good research by other people.
Yeah, I think what you're going to do, Graham, is, and what you've learnt, is that you don't know if you don't ask. And there's also that old-fashioned quote, if you don't ask, the answer's always no. And the internet's given both you and I, all of us here, everyone listening, the opportunity to contact some of these, historians, and most of them will, reply to them. I think that, if I send somebody an email or something, I usually get a reply because, because I put on the top of it from Steve Hall, so they can see who it's from. But most of them, will reply, as with Bruce and you, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And you send him an email, and he'll reply. See, you can a little bit, every now and then his personality is a little bit like mine. It can be a little bit short, and I think he can be been a little testy lately because he gave up the smokes, I think.
He's just an old Chicago cop. Like I said, as I was reading his message, I could just hear it in his voice. It was just funny. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. It was funny.
I hear his voice every day of the week.
Well, I think Bruce was from Chicago, I think, then.
Yeah, he used to be
a police
Chicago
officer.
Yeah, he was actually. Yeah, it was. So Chicago. I don't remember. Might have been actually. I don't know. Springvale or something. He was there. He's sergeant, I think he was, and that's what he was doing when I first met him. So, and but he hasn't changed much over the years. It just got a bit older, like I have, I suppose.
Chicago never leaves the person. You can move away, but it never leaves you.
No, well, because we're going back, sorry, Brian, talking, but when me and Bruce started originally talking, I was actually sending him messages, emails, or whatever it was, and he was at work in the police car. So, and we'd get messages back because we were just, trying to do the first book we did, So, but he used to say how cold it was in winter there.
Mm-hmm.
And then he used to say during summertime, he said Saturday night's madness here. He said all the silly ones all come out. So, but that's 20 years ago, 25 years ago.
Hasn't changed.
Hasn't changed. I imagine it hasn't. So, but sorry, Graham. It's
that's quite right.
So your show, mate. So
it's all very. I mean, another example of the cooperation I received was concern the Belfast Titanic Memorial, because in my book there's a lot of the dates of the opening dates or unveiling dates of most of the famous memorials around the world. And the Belfast Titanic Memorial originally opened in June 1920 in the middle of Belfast Town Square. And I had read in a book that it was moved on the 28th of November 1959 to the grounds of Belfast City Hall. And that seemed a fairly concrete date. But then Gunter Barber, I think, queried that. He thought it was the 29th of November 1959. So I then got in touch with the Belfast Telegraph, asking them if they had any photographs of the move at that time. And they said no. But what the guy who replied to me said that because it was a rather difficult thing to shift, a great big edifice in the middle of a roadway, they did it after midnight. So they prepared it on the 28th of November, but the actual move didn't occur until the early morning hours of the 29th of November. So that he gave me a reference to an article or something. So that then sorted that date out. So it was actually the 29th when it was moved to its present site in the grounds of Belfast City Hall. And then, of course, I then had to find something else for the 28th of November. So this sort of thing happened all the time. I clarified a date, but then it created a hole in my calendar for something else. But eventually I managed to fill it. I mean, I've had 10, anywhere from 3 to 15 different events for the same date of a year. So you got to sort of, I can't leave out some things, but I can leave out others which are fairly obscure and But that was an example of the cooperation I got from both Gunter and both from the gentleman at the Belfast Telegraph.
which is good. And 1912 was a leap year. So
There
you
was,
had to
yes.
find one for the 29th of February.
I did, yeah. I just found out that that's when the strike began. The coal miners' strike began on the 29th of February 1912. It
Yeah.
finished on the 6th of April. But of course, that
Yeah.
had lasting impacts on the Titanic's maiden voyage because a number of people were transferred from other ships to the
Yeah.
Titanic because of the lack of coal. And of course, many of those people lost their lives had they
Why
sailed on.
did I don't know whether you put it in the PDF, Graham, but Halley's Comet was in the night sky, wasn't it?
I think that was
Early
1910.
1912,
I think it
1910,
was.
was it?
I
That's
think it
right.
was
I remember
19.
there now.
Yeah,
Thomas
I think
Andrews took his wife, apparently.
yeah. Because I recall seeing it here in 1986, and I
Yeah.
think it was 76 years since it had last. But yeah, I think it was 1910. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's always going to be things that are going to crop up that I'm either going to have to revise what I've done or add in new things. There's a couple of things, I can't put my finger on them now, but a couple of events, either I can't find photographs or suitable illustrations for, or there's some doubt about the date. And another example I had was originally I had the date that French survivor Michel Navratil visited his father's grave at the Baron de Hirsch Cemetery. I had a little booklet about the cemeteries which had stated that it occurred on the 27th of August 1996. And it wasn't until well into the research that I worked out that that could not have been possible because he was on one of the cruise ships that went out to the wreck site to witness the first attempt to bring up the big piece. And so he couldn't have been in Halifax and, of course, got to the wreck site in time. So it wasn't until I emailed Charles Haas to sort that out because Charlie had been on the same ship, I think, with him as one of the historians. And he then confirmed that he had actually visited the cemetery on the 25th of August, which was 2 days earlier. So I managed to pin that one down as well. That was important to me because that was the only time Mr. Navratil visited the Baron de Hirsch Cemetery and saw his father's grave. And so that was quite a significant. And there was a photograph that was available as well of Mr. Navratil and Edith Brown Hazeman, who had been taken to the cemetery, and then they both went out on the cruise ship to the wreck site to witness their first attempt to bring up the big piece. So that was all these little things just add to it.
I remember the big piece.
Mm.
And the piece that they brought up was actually rather unique to Titanic.
Yeah,
so
the big piece features in my book 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, I think it's mentioned, including when it first went on display at the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas. I managed to track down that date as well. I emailed the Luxor and they gave me there was a newspaper article they gave me about when it was due to open, and the date was specified in there. So that was, of course, I've been there and had my own photographs of the entranceway and that. So I incorporated some of those images as well. But yeah.
So is it still there now?
I believe so.
Still in the same place?
Yeah.
I think they had to reinforce the floor underneath so it didn't fall through the floor, I think.
Okay.
I think
they probably did. I mean, I
think
don't know
they
if they'll
did,
ever take it out of there. It's huge and very, very heavy. Like I said, I think they had to do a lot of custom work to the room that it's in. Las Vegas is a nice, very dry environment, very, very, very low humidity. So it's very good for, the big piece like that.
Well, you got to see it, didn't you, Joe, last year?
I did. I took lots and lots of pictures.
Let you touch it.
They wouldn't let us touch it, but I took a picture that looks like I was touching it. I was like holding my hand.
She snuck up there and touched it, Steve.
No, I wanted to, but I mean, I have a necklace with a piece of Titanic rust in it, so I open that and touch it on occasion.
I think when I was there, you weren't allowed to take photographs. I've got a photograph of me superimposed on a photograph of the
Um,
which they were selling in the souvenir shop. You know, they take your photograph when you're walking, and later they'd superimpose it over the big piece. But it's not the same as having your picture taken on your own camera in front of it. But when I was there in 2017, yeah, I think at that time you weren't allowed to take photographs inside any of the exhibition. But now I think you
I'm
can.
really
Is
glad.
that right, Joanna?
Hmm?
I think you can take photographs now on your own camera and there.
Yeah, the only place they wouldn't let you take your own photographs was on the grand staircase, because they do take photographs there, and they'll charge you for it. But I mean, that was fine. I mean,
Yeah.
you pose for the photographs, and at the end they sell them to you. And then when you first go into the exhibit, they have you pose in front of the green screen and do a lot of things, and then they sell those to you at the end too. But then and that's fine too. But they let you take photographs throughout the exhibit, which I mean, I think I took pictures of every single thing in the museum, multiple times. Uh, and the big piece, it was just kind of surreal being there with so many people who were on the 98 expedition, that brought it up. And then Lewis Abernathy, from the 97 movie. Do you know who I'm talking about? He played Lewis Bodine,
Yeah.
which was not a far cry from who he really is. He's been down to the wreck. He said he's been down to the wreck more times than he can count. So I went through it with him, and I was like, so, the last time you saw stuff like this, it was on the ocean floor. I was like, so what's it like seeing it in a museum? And he was like, he said, it's really kind of odd. He said, because I did see a lot of it on the ocean floor, and we couldn't bring it up. He was like, so he said, I saw a lot of shoes down there. He said,
didn't they drop the big piece first time round?
Yeah, they
They
did.
couldn't get it up, and then for some reason
What happened was
it fell back down again.
the ship that they took out there, that they had hired to actually bring the big piece up out of the water. They did not bring the equipment that they were hired to bring. They thought they could bring the big piece up with like this small little crane, but they had been hired to bring this very specific piece of equipment to bring the big piece up out of the water. Well, they didn't bring that specific piece of equipment, so they could not get the big piece out of the water. The big piece came up to the top, and they did not get it out of the water with what they brought on the ship that was supposed to get it out of the water. So they tried just kind of towing it under the water for a while, and that was not working very well.
So it sunk twice.
Went back down to the bottom, yeah.
So they released it. They just let it go. And George Tulloch left it down there with a little note that said, I'll be back, or something like that. Bill Willard tells it a lot better than I do. But they made a note of it, the exact location of it and everything. So they sunk it on purpose, and came back in 98 with a ship that had the right equipment, and again brought it back up to the surface. This ship had the right crane and the right equipment to bring it up out of the water, and put it on the deck of the ship, and bring it back to shore. But yeah, I did not touch it. Bob is like in the comments saying that I touched it. I did not. I behaved myself. I did. I was really good. But it was really neat. Graeme, did you see this? Like on the back of the big piece, you can see like the maker's mark, like the number.
Just get another coffee,
and
guys.
everything.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I could go around behind it and have a look at the inside of the big piece. Yes, and it was quite.
I like zoomed in and took pictures of that. I thought that was really cool, and I don't know. I like to take pictures of everything, and then I got pictures in front of it with everybody, like Bill Willard and like people from the expedition, and the reporters who had been on the expedition, like my husband, by myself, and like it was just so surreal, just being in there, because like you look at all the artifacts, and then you like walk in the room with a big piece, and like it's like somebody sucked the air out of the room, and you're just standing there like, I'm standing in front.
But Bill Willard, he wrote a book, didn't he, about the expedition, the 1998 one. I think he wrote a book that I did buy that book. and there's a lot
I
of photographs in
you
there.
don't have that one?
I managed to find enough photographs to be able to record in my project the date that the big piece arrived. I think it was in Boston, 21st of August, I think, something like that. Yeah, 11 days
That
after
was
being born.
actually that's worth getting. Our Story by Bill Willard.
That's right.
He collected like uh different little snippets from people who were on the expedition. So he wrote, a good portion of it himself, but then he's got like um small stories from other people who were on the expedition. So if they were there at Titanicon, I got them to sign, their portion in his
Good
book that they
idea.
wrote.
Yeah.
So that was cool. I mean, I already had Bill sign it like a long time ago, but then I went around at the conference and had, people sign, where they had written, their portion of the book. It's kind of a neat story, to hear it from different people's perspective. Like he had the doctor who was on the expedition. He had Susan Wells, who
Right.
wrote
Yeah.
her book. I had her sign her book, and then I had her sign Bill's book.
Oh,
But
yeah.
she was just lovely. I would love her to have her on the show sometime. She's just very nice. Then I mean, there were just so many people that were at the conference that I got to meet. It was just really nice.
Susan Wells's book, Titanic: Legacy of the World's Greatest Ocean Liner, fabulous book. I bought that, I don't know when it came out, in the 90s, I think, late 90s. But yeah, lovely book with all those color photographs of the exhibits and that the wreck artifacts and that. Yeah, fabulous book.
It
Really
is.
printed really well, and yeah, wonderful feast of pictures in that book. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
I enjoyed talking with her. She's just a very nice lady. She's written some other books that are not Titanic related. They're just kind of like historical books. Let's see who else I mean. Saul Rauda. He's a photographer. He's an interesting fellow. I enjoyed meeting him and getting to know him last year. Let's see, just some other like journalists and people like that. Who Garsky.
Right. Yeah. Bill Garsky. Yeah, that's right. He wrote a book. Yeah, he wrote a book called Titanic Ships, Titanic Disasters, with a very technical book with a purple cover. Yeah, I managed to find a copy of that on the secondhand a number of years ago, and it's yeah, I haven't read it yet. I'm ashamed to say it's one of many Titanic books I have acquired, and I haven't read it and had them read. They're still waiting to be read. I keep a spreadsheet of all my books, a detailed
John, are you
spreadsheet.
watching? See, there's somebody else out there that does that. My friend John, I always tell him, I'm like, I got this book. I haven't read it yet. And he's like,
yeah, well, my spreadsheet records that I've probably only gone through, I'm guessing here, less than half of the books I have acquired. I read P.H. Nargelet's book a few weeks ago, so I've ticked that one off now. I put in the column that says read ? And I put yes, 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 but there are a lot of gaps heading down the list.
I had to pull up my program to like remind me of everybody that I saw and met that were on the expedition. Bob Anderson, he was the like the technical guy, like the that was on the expedition. Bob McEwen was one of the journalists, and let's see who else. Bob McEwen, and there were just so many like really nice people that were there. Alex Foley, she was on the expedition. Meade Jorgensen, I was one of the reporters, one of the journalists, I believe. Let's see, Rob Roddy, yeah, Bill Garsky. I got all these. I was telling everybody the last time we got together on the 401 that this is Bill puts together these great programs. So I go around Titanicon and get everybody to sign by. He put the speakers' pictures and names in there.
Yep.
Everybody can see that. But I go around and get each speaker to sign. Like
good idea. Yeah.
Except that one guy you didn't.
Except for the guy that did the restorative work, the conservation work on the big piece. I didn't get to catch up with him. That's the only signature I didn't get. The guy that was talking about that did the conservation work on.
Disappointed, Joe. Disappointed.
I wasn't fast enough.
I did the same thing, Joe, and when I was on the Azamara journey in 2012. Not only did
Uh-huh.
because I was dining most nights with a group of different people on board, all of whom were interested in the Titanic for various reasons, I usually got the menu cards that we were presented with, or I asked the waiter to photocopy some other ones, and I had all of them sign either the programs that they gave us quite a lot of material on that voyage. The Miles Morgan Travel, the agency that had chartered the cruise ships, printed all of this, or all the souvenir items that they left in our stateroom. So there were programs, there were menu cards, all sorts of things they gave us. And I had a lot of them signed by either my dinner companions, or one night I gave a book that I bought on board. It was a sort of a diary book, but I wasn't really keeping a diary. I was keeping my own notes, and I wrote up my diary when I got back home. But the waiter went away, and he was away for about 10 minutes. And then when he came back in his sort of broken English, he'd written a little story, Dear Mr. Jupp, I am delighted to serve you on board the Azamara journey. It is my pleasure to be. Yeah, he wrote a little story for me, and which was nice. That was one of the waiters on board the ship. Yeah, but you're getting signatures of people is quite a nice thing sometimes, particularly those who've had some involvement, either authors or historians, or those in your case who were involved in the expedition.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Mm.
So I'm gonna pull up our presentation real quick and see what we have going on here. Where to go? There it is. Okay. So here we go. Oh, I just lost something. Okay. That is our little cover sheet there. There we go. So this is about Graeme. That's one of his bookshelves. And Graeme, how many bookshelves do you have that are that full of books?
There's that one is full, and the one you've just shown on the previous slide is slightly narrower than that. But that one there's got, you can see 5 shelves there. There's one below too, near my knees, which you can't quite see in that picture. But there's 2 like that now, and there's another one loaded with the 300 and something ocean liner and cruise ship books. So I'm running out of space in the house.
So it's, yeah. Okay. So I thought I had a lot of books. That's more than what I have. That's amazing. And then this is you. You sailed aboard the Queen Elizabeth in 2022. Is that correct?
2017, I had 2 trips on the Queen Elizabeth. February 17 from San Francisco to Auckland across the Pacific via Honolulu, Apia in Samoa, and Nuku'alofa in Tonga. And then I went on the ship again last year with my sister and brother-in-law who live in Perth, Australia, from Perth to Singapore.
Wow.
Lovely
Nice.
ship. Really nice ship. It's not too big. It wasn't too crowded. And going with Cunard is always 5-star. I found it's fabulous.
Lovely.
Yeah, the other picture you see there of me in front of Robert Lloyd's painting, well, that's the QE2, the Queen Mary 2, and the Queen Victoria at Southampton in 2018, I think, something like that. That's on board the Queen Elizabeth in February 2017. Yes.
Wow. Lovely. So you told me that you became interested in the Titanic in the 1970s.
Yes, late 70s. I'm 53 now, so it would have been in the late 70s. I found a book in the local library which had a specific illustration in it of showing Captain Smith and water coming into the ship. But I've never seen that same photograph, but it's imprinted on my mind so much so that I can visualize it. But in all the books I've acquired since then, I've never again seen that picture. Whether it was in a book specifically about the Titanic or not, I cannot remember. I was only probably 6 or 7 years old at the time. Or whether it was a book more about maritime disasters or something else, I can't remember. But I've never seen the same picture since. But I'm pretty sure that experience was what inspired my interest. And not long after that, I found the illustrated edition of Walter Lord's A Night to Remember, which for many years for me was the Bible of the Titanic story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful book. I love that book.
Yeah.
And it's funny how so many, about that age, become interested in the Titanic. I was 6 when I saw just a little bit of Raise the Titanic. And then that just happened to be the same year that the wreck was discovered. But I was 6. And so many people that I talked to were, about the same age, 5, 6, 7 years old. It must just leave a real impression on people about that age. And we were talking too before the show. You were a small child when you or younger when you got a copy of Bob Ballard's, what was it?
I did. That's right. The discovery of the Titanic, which I was given for Christmas 1987. I was 16 and a half at the time. That was the first Titanic book I had. And that to me was a wonderful present, because there'd never been a book like that printed before. The year before, John Eaton and Charles Haas's book, Titanic, Triumph and Tragedy, had come out. But that was an expensive book in itself. But the discovery of the Titanic, particularly with regard to the wreck photographs, and this is the first time I was exposed to the fantastic artwork of Ken Marshall. I mean, I couldn't believe that an artist could create paintings like that, so real and so accurate. And that was really a revelation, that book. And it's always been considered one of the best Titanic books. And I think it still is.
I remember looking at those paintings as a child and thinking, how did they take a picture like that under the water? And it took me a long, I was just a little kid when that book came out. It took me a few years to realize that they were indeed paintings. And I'm still just fascinated by Ken Marshall's paintings, even now, so many years later. So I totally understand that. And that book, I have that in so many different editions. I got the little, I guess, abridged version when I was a child. And then there's so many different additions to that. There's like a little squatty looking book, and then there's the big hard copy, and then there's that small little paperback book that I had when I was younger.
The remarkable thing about A Night to Remember is I think it's always been in print in the 69 years now since it first appeared. 69 years in November this year. So it was November 1955. The American edition came out. And I think you've always been able to get it. It's never gone out of print, which is testimony to Walter Lord's writing style for a start, and the fact that he'd done all this research before the book came along, and he had the advantage of corresponding with so many survivors, that he built this story up over the night of the disaster, because it's not really about the rest of the ship's story. It's just purely about that night, and it's remarkable that I'm pretty sure you can still buy it now from various websites, and that it's still in print. Yeah.
I was really surprised, looking back as an adult, I'm surprised they sold that at an elementary school, because they did. I bought that at the little book fair at my elementary school. So here I was probably in 3rd or 4th grade reading A Night to Remember. I might have even been younger. I was just really small, and there was a lot of it I didn't understand. But that was one of the first Titanic books that I had, and I was just sitting here reading it, as a little tiny kid, but I just wanted to read everything I could about Titanic. But I'm with you, discovering the Titanic or exploring Titanic, whatever, because I think it went under 2 different names based on which edition you had. You by Bob Ballard. That was really the first affordable Titanic book you could get, other than A Night to Remember, because the big books by Eaton and Haas, those were library books. You couldn't just buy those and take them home, because I would go to the library and look at those, or
Well, I wasn't. Funny enough, after I started work in 1989, that year I did buy through a technical bookshop in Wellington as a special order the 1986 original American edition of Titanic, Triumph and Tragedy, which of course had all these photographs in it. And that still to this day is one of the most expensive books I've purchased. I think it's number 7 or 8 on the list now, down from George Boogie's latest one. But yeah, Triumph and Tragedy, I had to get it through the mainstream bookstores in Wellington City didn't sell it. They didn't have it in stock. So I had to buy it through a specialist order bookstore, and quite a few of them came by that means until I started buying them from bookstores in England. And of course, I got quite a few booklets and facsimile editions from the Titanic Historical Society's store when I joined in 1990. So I got started building up the collection through there. But over the years, most of the books have come from either bookstores in the UK or via online sites. I think the Book Depository, which is now closed in the UK, that supplied me with over 250 titles over 11 years. It was a huge, and especially in 2012, there were a lot of great books, including this one. Oh, you probably might say this one here.
Oh, it's disappearing.
Anyway, Titanic Icon of an Age by Michael McCorn. It was.
You want to try it again?
I'll try it again. No, it's not as sharp as it. No, that's okay. It was originally published in 1998 as The Birth of the Titanic, and in 2012, Michael McCorn and the Blackstaff Press reissued it in a brand new format, and showcased the Harland and Wolff photographs. It was printed on high-grade paper, so the clarity of the images was absolutely outstanding. So I didn't have any hesitation in buying the book again because it had been completely redesigned, reformatted. These photographs are now printed in a greater resolution, and so that's one of the better books I've acquired. And I bought that along with heaps of others in 2011 and 12. Yeah, that was a real landscape of books that year.
So, all right, let me pull the slideshow back up. I want to say hi to Terry Bay, who's watching. I want to say hi to Abby. She's one of the moderators for our group, Great Olympic Class Ships. And I want to say hi to Bob Custer, who's watching. Bob is one of the admins for RMS Titanic Reflections, and he's in our groups and everything, although he doesn't always know which ones. But we love him to death. He was in Las Vegas with us, and apparently what happens in Vegas doesn't always stay there. Thank you, Bob. But moving on along to current events. This is taking place in Atlanta. This is Titanic, an immersive voyage. It's a Titanic Expo through July 31st. It's being put on by John White of oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Dan, White Star Memories. Thank you. It's just like left my head for a minute.
You're welcome.
White Star Memories. Thank you. John White of White Star Memories, and then John Zoller. I want to thank Josh Noble for the photographs. He went down, well, I say down to Atlanta, but he lives down there. He went there and met John White, or met up with John White, I believe, yesterday. And he took these fantastic photos of what's going on down there. And these are just amazing. I wasn't expecting all this. But just, I mean, look at this. You've got like the simulated grand staircase there with the cherub. You've got the honor and glory clock there off to the side. I don't know if you can see it in that photo with the grand staircase. You've got like replicas of, some staterooms there. And then there's like a replica lifeboat. Josh was telling me like you can put like VR glasses on and have that whole VR experience. So if you're going to be in the Atlanta area, definitely check this out because it just looks like such a really fantastic experience. It looks like John and John really put together just a fantastic expo here. Here's a replica of the Marconi room. It looks like they have a deck chair there. There's John White and John Zoller who put this all together. They have some White Star china and silverware there, I believe, from some other Olympic class ships or White Star line ships and stuff. They've got some replica stuff here. There's Josh Noble there in the corner. Sorry, Josh, I swiped that from your Facebook, so everybody know who you are. But I appreciate Josh letting me use these so everybody can see like what the real expo looks like. So if you're there, or if you're not too far away from Atlanta, go check it out, because that just looks like a really interesting place to be. I want to say hi to Michael Goldsmith, who's watching. Hi, Michael. And then also current events. I don't know if anybody's aware, but there is an expedition out there taking place. It's the RMS Titanic Inc. expedition. Not a whole lot going on out there. Apparently, they had some weather conditions that were not optimal for the ROVs to be down at the wreck site today. So that's the only update that those of us without a membership get. So there you go. That's the update for today. And then coming up, there's going to be an RMS Titanic Inc. Sponsored exhibition in Boston. I don't think there's been an exhibition there since the big piece was there many years ago. And then they have some other exhibitions going on internationally. I forgot to write down where they are. I apologize. I was trying to put this together quickly. And then August 1st is the last day to sign up for Titanicon. So if you're interested in going to Titanicon, you've got until I think Tuesday or Wednesday. But August 1st is the cutoff date. So Titanicon is August 9th through 11th. Cannot wait. It's in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Bill Willard has organized a great event here. He's got some fantastic speakers and events lined up for us. There's always the gala dinner, which is going to be Friday night this year. We will be going to the Titanic Museum attraction and having just a lovely dinner there. They always fix items off the Titanic menus, and it's just a big fancy dinner. Everybody just dresses up, and we just socialize, and it's just really fun. We'll have tours of the Titanic Museum, and you get to meet people who share the same interests, and it's just a really interesting and fun experience. So we're at Hot Topics.
Mhm.
We're just going to visit here for a minute because we want to get back to books and Graeme. So I've told you guys before, those of you who are watching and who watches regularly, Dan and I kind of like snoop around in the, well, I won't say snoop, but I mean, we're in a lot of groups, and
No, we snoop around.
okay, well, we do a little bit. But we're in a lot of groups, and we manage a lot of groups, and that kind of thing. And especially with the expedition taking place and stuff like that, people ask a lot of questions like, are they going to go inside the wreck? And I saw the stupidest TikTok today, or what are the things that are not TikToks but are still little what are they? That's the little videos. I don't know. So I saw a little video today saying that there's still treasure in there and all this stuff, and showing a little ROV going inside the wreck and pulling stuff out. All right, so should artifacts be recovered from inside the wreck?
Yes.
This is a topic that's been heatedly debated, back and forth for, a long time. And I'm going to be honest, many, many years ago, I, helped head up a campaign that was a letter writing campaign to Judge Smith in Norfolk to allow RMS Titanic Inc. to attempt to remove the Marconi from the Marconi room. I had seen the plans that they had come up with to do so without causing any damage to the ship. They were of course going to do a lot of research and looking into this, and no, Terry, went in YouTube Shorts. Were the reels? That's what I was talking about. I saw a reel today, where somebody was suggesting, hey, there's a lot of treasure inside Titanic, send ROVs in and pull it out. But anyway, so I did start the letter write, or not start, but encourage people to write letters, and I wrote letters to Judge Smith to to approve this plan. She wasn't going to allow RMST to to entertain that idea unless they had an actual plan. So they did come up with a plan. The plan was, not invasive. Um, and that is the Marconi was I think a great significant historical value. Now, having seen pictures from inside of the Marconi room, it's questionable, what they could actually recover and that kind of thing. So I know they were going to really evaluate it before they, made a decision to try to extract anything. That being said, should they go inside and try to bring things out of staterooms? Should they try to go in there and look for treasure? That's kind of where we're at. I don't know. I'm really on the fence about it, to be honest. What do you guys think?
Treasure, no. Items of historical significance, yes.
How about Graeme and Steve? What do you guys think?
I think the attempt to bring out the wireless apparatus, I don't know how much of it they would be able to recover.
Mhm.
That would be, well, not meaningful, but if they could,
Mhm.
if the because I think there's some items still suspended on the wall, and
There are
there
some
may
things on
be
the wall.
other bits scattered around the floor, but they're going to be going into a very confined area, presumably with ROV, or I'm not sure. I haven't seen the plan, so I don't know quite what they were planning. Were they going to try and lift some of the roof off that was crumbled away, or?
Well, there were actually skylights
Okay.
that were existing there. So they had, access points. The plan that I actually saw and that I still have, but I cannot share. And this was, from many years ago, but then COVID hit and the company fell into some financial problems and stuff, and they had to cancel their expedition. The judge did approve this, by the way, but what they what they were considering doing was going in through the hi Stefan. What they were considering doing was going in through the skylights with like a system of like suction and baskets. Like the baskets wouldn't go in, but they would, of course they would have their their submersibles out here. Used to have eyes on what they were doing, and they'd have ROVs with cameras and stuff. So they would, have eyes and everything. And then they would have their little suction hoses and stuff going in, guided by ROV. And they had these like little arms, like robotic arms guiding, the suction hoses. Everything was done very delicately, just going in through the skylight. So no, there was no like contact with anything. And so the suction hoses were gonna like kind of pull things like small things in, and then the little robotic arms were gonna hopefully delicately lift the things off of the wall and very delicately bring them out of the skylight. That's the plan that I saw, and that's the plan that the judge had approved. There was not supposed to be any contact with the ship itself, and there wasn't going to be any supposedly damage to it. And that's what they were after, what was on the wall, some things on the floor. They wanted the key, that kind of thing. They would love to have found, I think, whatever the wireless operators had repaired, the day prior to the sinking. But I mean, that's one thing. But I mean, going in and Dan Cherry says it's almost like a laparoscopic procedure regarding the Marconi recovery. That's what it looked like. It was just a very delicate set of like hoses and little robotic arms, with nothing like touching anything. I don't know if that's even still possible or even an option anymore, to be honest. But
Sounds like
as
a
far as
very,
going,
very,
Hmm?
very, sounds to me as though it's an operation that there'd be a lot of not risk involved, but if you wouldn't want to disturb or damage something that it fell apart in the attempt of retrieving it. That would be the worry for me. Something sort of delicate.
like I said, I don't even know if it's an option. Because this was a few years ago, and things have been um degrading, especially on the substructure and stuff. So who knows what's there now. But anyway, um as far as like going inside of the wreck, what do you think, Steve?
Um, to be honest, guys, I've never had a great interest in the wreck itself. I've always, wanted to remember the ship as it was. What's left of it now is not a ship anymore, and it's 114 years or something, is it? I think since it went down. I do understand the Marconi device. It'd be quite interesting to get that. But if you follow what happened in that Marconi room, probably 10 or 15 minutes before Titanic sank, and whether it's true or not, somebody was trying to take one of the life belts off Phillips from, I think it was, and someone, his bride or something, I think, I'm not sure, coshed the bloke over the back of the head. And whether he did that or not, I don't really know. But if that's true, because when they left for the last time, the man was still lying on the floor. So in my opinion, it's probably the only gravesite on Titanic you could identify. Because if the body was there, and the roof was still intact when it went down, so the body couldn't have got out. So, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, if he was doing what he's doing, he got what he deserved. The boat got clubbed over the head. So, but I can see the point of getting it out. What other things are there in Titanic to go and have a look at? I don't really know. I think it's just all deteriorated, really too much, and so Cameron got in and had seen a lot of things, some little medicine vials and things like that. That'd be good to, recover those things. So I really just don't think there's anything left down there anymore, I mean, most of us think probably we'll just grab the anchors off it. That'd be a good idea. And a lot of other people so like to get the propellers off it too. They're not going to be able to do that. I really think in 20 or 30 years from now, it'll just start falling in on each other. So if you want the Marconi device, now's the time to go and get it, I really think. And some of the cabins or something like that, they're open portholes along different places on the ship. I suppose you could probably push a camera in and have a look and see what's in there really. But even if there's something in there, I mean, what's there to get? Sort of, I don't really know. Really, it's just in my opinion. Good luck to them if they go down and they do what they want to do. I think good luck to them. And I think you're going to have to start seriously considering recovering larger pieces out of the debris field. I think if they go down and get one of the boilers, that'd be a good thing to turn around and do, but that'd be a big job. The other large pieces of hull plate down there, you could get those. And I don't really know. I don't say leave it alone, but I just don't see anything of any significance beyond that Marconi device to really penetrate into the wreck to try and achieve. I say to them good luck if they want it. So I hope they get it. Be a good thing put on a museum wall someplace or something like that. But everything else is gone. So it's hard to tell really, So good luck to them if that's what they want to do. I'm sort of getting too old now to sort of worry too much about recovering pieces or something and then going to a museum and seeing I don't know. I think they're better off start having a good look inside the pyramids or the Sphinx or something. That might to be of more interest to me.
That'd be
Let's
cool.
be honest. So, yeah. So really, Graham, I suppose really because all these books that you've collected, and,
Yeah.
and it's a great collection. I mean, the question has to be asked. I mean, what's your favourite book?
Well,
I'm not hunting here for you to say it's
yeah.
Titanic in photographs or it's this or it's that or whatever it was. But I mean, if you had to make a pile, and what would be in your pile of say 5 or
Well,
6 books?
if I was to pick out, say, sort of the top 10, I mean, I have sort of picked out the top 10 before. I mean, I've got one here beside me, Exploring the Deep, the James Cameron expeditions. To me, that's an absolute treasure trove because it's virtually all in colour. Glorious spread of photographs of the wreck, you know, given that it has deteriorated a lot since then. Cameron went into all these corners and recorded all this spectacular imagery and photographs, and Ken Marshall had a lot of input into the book. So for me, that's right up there. I mean, the another book I really like, it's not a Titanic book per se, but in 2010, the Northern Irish Publishing Company published a book called Titanic Port, A History of Belfast Harbour. Large, lavish hardback, 400 pages, 400 years worth of Belfast Harbour history, of which 70 odd pages were devoted to the Olympic class ships. It's a magnificent book, beautifully printed, beautifully illustrated. And I bought it at the Belfast Harbour Commissioner's office in 2015, had to lug it around all day with me, but it's one of the most beautiful books I've ever acquired. It's an amazing book. I mean, it's quite hard to get initially, and I just happened to go to the Harbour Commissioner's office to have a look around, and I asked the receptionist, do you have copies of this book? And she said, yes. And then she funnily said to me, you'll have to pay for it. I said, I haven't come here expecting a free book. But anyway, I paid my £25 and I got this book, and I'm so glad I bought it because it is a real treasure of a book. I mean, there's so many others. Titanic in Photographs, Steve, I have to say that is a really nice book to look through. Titanic, Triumph and Tragedy, Titanic in Illustrated History, Don Lynch and Ken Marshall's book, which came out unbelievably 32 years ago. And I still think that's one of the better books. There's so many, though, that I could rattle off. It's a
classic. The two books apart from Titanic in Photographs, they're fantastic books, and there's so many books out there. But I mean, over the years now, I'm sort of not writing sort of books anymore. It's commission jobs or something like that. So I'm not really delving too much into the books. But I mean, I have one or two books which are favourites. I don't really look at books too much anyway. But I think that, look, as much as I like the Centennial Reappraisal book, is that it?
Yeah, that's another one. Yes,
By
that's
Sam and myself and a few others.
Yeah.
I really like that book.
Mm.
But if you had to put that next to Honesty of Glass, I'd take Honesty of Glass.
Yeah, and
because I just think it just flows better.
So we have been blessed in the last 20 years or so. It sort of began in 2008 with Titanic, the Ship Magnificent. Since then, there have been a core group of books that have been researched very thoroughly and published to a high standard, most of them by the History Press. And they form really a good nucleus now for anyone starting out in the story.
Yeah.
Acquire those books and you'll get a really good understanding and appreciation of the wider Titanic story.
Yeah, they
really
2012, that was a pretty big year. There's quite a lot of books that were produced at that time. But other books that like Mark Chirnsider's wrote. I mean, I really like Mark's books and the amount of research he goes into. And I was going to ask, although Titanic books, I mean, do you have an interest in Olympic and Britannic?
Yeah, I have most of the Olympic and Britannic books, certainly the ones by Mark. I relied heavily on those when I decided to include Olympic events in my Titanic book because of the relationship of the Olympic and the Titanic. And of course, Simon Mills has turned out quite a few on the Britannic as well. So I've acquired virtually all of the Olympic and the Britannic ones that have been published by a variety of publishers now. Simon's got his own publisher in the UK. Mark's ones have mostly come from the History Press. And the History Press, to their credit, they do a fantastic job. They're really good. The books are designed in such a way, and that obviously that publisher cares greatly about the quality of the publication, how it's designed and laid out. And they've got a good pool of authors now who continually go back to them. The other thing that's happened in recent years, which is really good, is there are now appearing more and more biographies of passengers and crew, which a number of authors, among them there's Randy Bryan Bigham did one on Dorothy Gibson, and there's a lot of other authors who are now contributing to that aspect of the Titanic story as well. So they're doing seriously good research. I mean, George Behe did one on Archibald Butt, and so the certain passengers and crew members. Yeah, so that aspect too has not been overlooked, thankfully, the passengers and crew side of things. So yeah,
George has done so many books.
Yeah, he's still
and none of the duds.
No, it took me ages to read his 512-page onboard RMS Titanic, but I got through it. It took a long time to read it, but it was a mighty book, you know, all of these original. And I did treat myself to his Letters from Titanic book that the History Press published last year. Thanks to so that's the most expensive book I purchased. I do also have, of course, the facsimiles. I'm glad I bought them, the facsimile reprints of the British inquiry and the American Senate investigation, which came out in 1998. They're quite hard to get now, but I managed to get one of the 300 signed copies that the Public Record Office produced. Melvina Dean signed all of them. And I've got number 216. So that for a while was the most expensive book I'd bought. And the American one, I just happened upon the American one. The Congressional Information Service published a facsimile of the American hearings in 1998. And I just happened upon that. It was referenced in the bibliography of another book I just bought. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I got in touch with the CIS, and sure enough, they still had them available. So I value that one as well.
I suppose the big question, Graeme, is what book hasn't been written yet?
Well,
what would you like to see? What would you really like to see something written about?
I've been thinking about this, Steve. We haven't yet had biographies of Fourth Officer Boxall and Third Officer Pittman and James Moody, the Sixth Officer, the youngest officer on board who didn't survive. He probably should have survived in command of one of the lifeboats, but perhaps he thought it was his duty to remain on board, like as did Lightoller, and try and free the collapsibles and save some more lives. So, I mean, Inga Shiel wrote a good one about Fifth Officer Harold Lowe, which is always thought of as a very good biography. But I'd like to see, because Boxall remained at sea the longest, he retired in 1940, having served on Cunard White Star liners in the 1930s. He stayed at sea and was still working as an officer when he retired. And then, of course, he lived for another 27 years, and his involvement in the making of A Night to Remember is well known. But I'd like to see a biography along the lines of what Patrick Stenson wrote of Charles Lightoller, a substantial biography like that about Boxall's life, because he played a significant role in the Titanic story. You know,
calculated. He wrote the book on Fifth Officer Lowe, wasn't it?
Inga Shiel, the Australian.
She's
really good.
Australian.
That's we didn't have that.
And that's another one.
Was still in the show.
There's also, I'd like to see maybe the odd book written about the men who built the ship in 1911. I mean, in my book, I've got reference to, I can't remember his name, the guy who essentially pushed the launch button on the 31st of May 1911. People like that, senior workers at Harland and Wolff who were involved in some meaningful way. I mean, thousands of men were involved, but there was the management structure. There was a structure in the shipyard, and I don't recall that there's been a book actually written about the men. There's the there's the books that Michael McCorn's turned out about the construction of the ship, and a lot's been written about the building of the ship, how it was done, and that. But
Yeah.
I'd like to see one maybe written about
that book's
the,
been done.
the senior members of the Harland and Wolff staff.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah,
Well, I think when the Titanic was launched, I think it almost took off on its own.
Yeah, released the triggers, didn't they? And I think
I think
I'm not
the
sure.
sort of hydraulic rams or something, but
Yeah,
got a funny feeling it was actually edging to go before the button was even pulled or the valve was open. So,
yeah. And
anyway,
I think Paul Loudon Brown wrote an article about, I can't remember his name, about the chap that he was involved in the launchings of over 250 ships at Harland and Wolff prior to his retirement in 1926. And his name escapes me at the moment. But anyway, so those sort of books I'd like to see written.
and they're really good. Yeah. What do you think about the possibility that Titanic's launch was filmed and the film's not with us anymore?
Yeah, I've seen numerous references to that over the years. I think there is a very small snippet of the Titanic's keel on a film that was made of the early stages of the Olympic. And we know there's film on the Olympic and Britannic. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it may have been, as you say, it might have been destroyed in a bombing raid, for all we know, in 1940, 41 at Harland and Wolff. Who knows? I mean, it might.
I would have thought if somebody's got it, they would have put it out there by now. Anyway. So.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. So I think people will keep writing books, but yeah, it's getting harder, isn't it? You got to try and approach it from a different angle, and yeah.
Well, there's another Titanic book coming out, I think in March or something, and I just wrote the foreword for it. I think that's probably one you're going to want to have. So,
what's the title of that one?
I can't tell you.
You can't tell. Okay. There's a few more.
I've read it. I've read it, and it's really good.
There's one coming out next year about the 6 Chinese passengers. The
yes, that one looks really good.
I think Bruce Beveridge helped them with the with that. I think.
And one I came across the other day.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
I met Stephen.
Captain Smith.
His Titanic.
Yeah. What's the other one?
Lunch has arrived.
He wrote the 6, and he showed his film at Titanicon. I wish that they could get like an international or national release for the film. It's absolutely fantastic. So I'm looking forward to that book coming out. The story that that's going to be in that book is it's really fascinating. So yeah, that's going to be great. When that book comes out, that's just a totally different angle that you don't hear about every day. So that's going to be really good. The film was just fantastic, but he went through to track down the backgrounds of those Chinese passengers. It was just really something. Just fantastic. That's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's
I still haven't acquired George's latest book, not the one he's written about the books and the bibliophiles. I'll get it in time from lulu.com, but the other one he wrote, the Triumvirate, about Captain Smith, Thomas Andrews, and Bruce Ismay. I think that'll be a very good read as well. So I haven't yet acquired that one, but it's coming. I won't stop buying them. There are some books that I shouldn't buy, but I generally do. I'm just curious, really, to see if it's new authors sometimes are unreliable in respect of their research, but I'm always sort of curious as to what they're going to say, and you don't know, of course, until you buy a book and read it, whether it's going to be terrible or outstanding. Some authors, of course, are guaranteed to be producing outstanding books, but newer authors in the market sometimes
they're relying too much on Wikipedia.
And other sources. So but I don't think I'll stop buying books on the Titanic. No.
So I don't want to ignore our viewers. We've got a lot of comments and questions coming in. So back up to a few minutes ago, Dan Cherry said that respectful recovery of historically vital artifacts is a good idea. Stefan joined our viewership here, and he says hello. Stefan is from Montreal. Let's let's see. I believe Terry said that she would be in favor of recovering artifacts from inside the ship. Let's see. Terry says, Graham, do you have the Olympic book by Wade Sisson called Racing Through the Night, the RMS Olympics Attempt to Help the Titanic, or something
Yes,
like that?
yes,
Wade's
I did.
just-
I did. Yeah, I did buy that
Yeah,
book when it
that one.
first came out.
Yeah,
It's quite.
you got Wade's book, did you, Graham?
I have indeed. Yeah, it's good. Good book.
Yeah, it's just a different perspective.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think from memory, one of the radio operators on the Olympic was actually an Australian.
Okay, I
Oh.
can't remember
I think
now,
he
but
was, and I can't remember what his name was. And he was on Olympic when Smith was on there, and Smith got to say who he wanted it to go on Titanic. And the two blokes on the Olympic were offered to go over onto Titanic, and they elected not to do it. And they were on the Olympic the night the message comes through from Titanic that was sinking. So there you go.
I did acquire Wade's book, and it didn't seem to be in print for very long. It was quite
No,
a good seller, and it went out of print very quickly, and it hasn't appeared since. But all the things I've ever heard about it have always been good, and certainly when I read it, I really enjoyed it because it approached the story again from a different perspective, and that's the sort of thing you want really, is people coming up with, hey, I'm going to write about that, and when they
Yeah.
do, it's quite a revelation. It was a really
well,
good
it's
book.
great, isn't it? Because what a great title, Racing Through the Night. And
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
you know, how far away was Olympic from Titanic when she was going down? I think it was
500
500 nautical miles or something. I mean, Olympic had no way of ever getting there, you know.
I think I even built that into my own book. I think it was a page about that book itself because of the unusual angle that book approached it. I decided to include the book in my book, one of a number of, I think it was History Press book again. And so it was in there. I wrote away to the publisher, and they gave me the exact date the book was launched or published. So that's why I've included numerous books. Most of the well-known ones are in there, but there's some other more interesting and obscure ones too, which I thought deserved to be included. And Wade's one was one of them.
Yeah, it's really good. Wish I had hair to comb, Joe.
Huh? I'm sorry.
I said I wish I had some hair to comb.
Oh, it's just getting on my nerves. Okay, so anyway, back to the comments. John Barris says that he'd like to see a book published on all the disputable alleged facts, myths, etc.
Okay, well, that's interesting because I'm sure that could be possible because just in recent days, I think J. Kent Layton has been putting up myth busting on various Facebook pages, and he's going through and explaining and referencing certain articles that Mark's written or other people have written, trying to help dispel these myths that continue to be perpetuated. But
I was wondering if a book was
ask
coming
Bruce
from all
Beveridge
that.
about a book about solving all these mysteries. He
Hmm.
might have some news for you, him and his co-author. We might be some reason they're trying to get pipped. And that book will be done probably next year sometime. So
All right.
all the
And
little
then,
fascinating little bits and pieces.
oh,
All the rubbish. Anyway, I've been busy lately typing away sometimes, doing a few things with rusting under my feet. But anyway, just while you're there, Graham,
yes,
and I did speak to Joanne the other day, that we were talking about a Titanic fireman who's buried in Rookwood Cemetery in Sydney.
Mm.
And I was just wondering, in New Zealand, are there any Titanic survivors buried in New Zealand?
Not that I'm aware of. There are a number of New Zealand connections. Of course, William Murdoch's wife, Ada Florence Banks, was from Akaroa near Christchurch.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, of course, when she married Murdoch, she moved to England. I think she came back here after he died, but I'm not sure whether she's buried here. I think I'd have to look up Suzanne Stormer's book to find that out.
do you have that?
Yes, I do. I managed to get that. Not the bigger one that she published. The bigger more substantial tome, which is quite hard to get. I managed to acquire, what's it called now? For heaven's sake, this is terrible. No, not that one. I don't have that one.
I have
No,
that one.
that's one I don't
This is
have.
one of the ones I was going to quiz you on to see if you had it.
Yeah.
I
No,
brought down
I'm
some
not.
like rare books to see if you had those because
No, that's one I don't have. So if you can hand it to me through the screen, I'll take it off you now. No.
no. Nice try.
Yeah.
Mine
And
is
no,
signed by her.
yeah.
I didn't think it was because most people sign like on the title page. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I didn't get a signature. But hers is on like the front blank page. Oh,
Right.
shoot, you can't see it.
Yeah.
Oh, where's my camera?
Yeah, it's
Oh, it's
hard
gonna
to
blank it out. But it's like you open the book and it's like right there it is. See? It's
Yeah.
like right there.
Yeah.
And most people sign it on like the title page, but hers is like on the front blank page. But she did sign it. And like mine has like extra stuff in it. Like it has like it has a loose photo in it.
Okay. Ah.
Like this
Did you
photo comes out.
buy that? Did you buy that from her new, Joanna, or did you get it from a used
No, I
book?
bought it like used from
Okay.
somebody.
Right. I've got the other one called Goodbye, Good Luck, a biography of W.M. Murdoch, which was a limited edition. I think there was only 500 of those produced. It's got a blue cover, and I managed to get number 291, I think it was, about 30 years ago I bought that. And but I don't have that one there, no. No, there's a few I don't have, a few that I would like to get. There's one also called Titanic's Unknown Child about Sidney Goodwin, written by Carol Goodwin, member of a descendant. And that Gunter Babler told me about that. He said to me years ago, you can only really purchase it from the author. I think it might have been a privately published book, but that's another one I'd like to try and track down. There's two now. I see two, Joanna, I don't have. Your one and that one.
Titanic's Unknown Child, is that what you said?
Titanic's Unknown Child, the story of Sidney Goodwin. It came about, I think it was published after his identity had been finalized, and Carol Goodwin then, I'm pretty sure it was post 2008. Yeah, somewhere around there. I want to have a note about it. Yeah, no, I don't. Oh, here we are.
My friend John Barris.
Here's my, oh, here we are. Titanic's Unknown Child, Carol Goodwin, Newcastle Lane Publishers in the US, hardback, 162 pages, US $45. That's the information I had for it. But I don't know the year, but I'm pretty sure it was after 2008. That's when they put the little plaque at the base of the Unknown Child Memorial at Fairview Lawn Cemetery.
Bet you're writing that down, aren't you, John?
Yeah.
Okay. So my friend John is like in the comment section, like saying he has both Susan Stormer books.
Okay.
I think one of them is signed by, well, who is the other one? Both are signed by, I think, Susan Stormer, or however you say her name, Suzanne Stormer. And then one is signed by a relative. I know you're going to tell me. Stefan says, which Graham's vast resources maybe he could find you. Oh yeah. I'm after this pyramid with coal.
Oh, the pyramid, there we go.
Sorry, Joanna, I missed some of that. What was the
no. So my friend Stefan, everybody who watches the 401 knows that I'm obsessed with finding this pyramid. It's like a little clear acrylic pyramid that has a piece of Titanic coal in it. It was sold at the Memphis exhibition by RMS Titanic Inc. in 1997, I think, or 1996. Nobody seems to have one. I've seen it online before. So I can't find them. I'm like obsessed with trying to find one.
I've only got the coal in the presentation box that I bought at, I think I bought that in Las Vegas at the Luxor.
I have a ton of coal. I just don't have the one in the pyramid. Okay. I don't know. That's what I want. I don't know. Nobody has one.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of other books I don't yet have. There's a few. I do keep a list of hard to find books, but the likelihood of me getting them, if I was in the United States and I was in a large used bookstore, I'd probably come away with quite a few either copies of books I already have, because I sometimes buy the American edition as opposed to the British edition. The British edition might have come out under a certain title, but for some reason, when the American edition comes out, it has a different title. And so I've often bought both, even though the text is the same. I like to have both. And I've done that in numerous instances of Titanic books over the years. Quite why I shouldn't really, because it's some people might say it's the same book, so why do you bother buying it? But
it's just different. Like Gareth Russell's book was like that, like the Lonesome. What is it, John? I know you know.
That's
the Lonesome Bounds
of a failing, Darksome Bounds of a Failing World. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, Gareth Russell. But it had the Titanic, the Ship of Dreams. There was a US, I think. Yeah. That's happened in several times where there's been different editions, and sometimes you get the unusual instance where, like for example, Win Craig Wade's book, The Titanic: End of a Dream, first came out in 1979, and then in 2012, the author had died in 2006. Another author, I think an Australian author, wrote a foreword or introduction to the new edition, which was now called Titanic: The Titanic Disaster of a Century. So it was built into that a lot of information that had been found out since Wade wrote his original book. And
well, a lot of those books, Graeme.
Yeah.
A lot of those early Titanic books, I mean, they're really out of copyright now. And if somebody wants to publish them, they can. It's like Sherlock Holmes's books, they're all out of copyright. So publisher can do it. And,
I managed to. Sorry.
I don't know what the time period is. Is it what 75 years after the author dies? I think
something like that. Yeah. But one book I managed to acquire a copy of last year was White Star by Roy Anderson. This was published in May 1964, and I think it was Greg Jasper was able to find out the exact date. He gave me a reference to a British list of books published in May 1964, and then there was the exact date, the 1st of May 1964. So I've been in touch with Roy Anderson. He's still alive. He's 88 now, I think, but he was only 27 when he wrote the book in 1964. And also I was in a Facebook touch with him, and he was very interested to learn that I wanted to incorporate that book into my own project, because it's generally considered one of the best of the White Star Line books that have come out. A long time ago now, 60 years ago. And
that one.
White Star, there it is. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So I had to pay over 100 New Zealand dollars to buy it, but it was in very good condition too. Yeah, I know. It's I will pay large sums of money if I really want to get the older books. That one is quite a good book. I don't have Paul Loudon Brown's one, The White Star Line in Illustrated History, which the THS produced some years ago. Haven't been able to get a copy of that. But I was interested to correspond with Roy Anderson, and finding out that he was relatively young when he wrote that book in 1964. Yeah.
Mine came with a newspaper.
Go on, Dan. I think Dan was going to say something.
Dan, were you going to say something, honey?
No, I think Steve was saying something.
All I was going to say, Joe and Dan, was that, with, Graeme's collection, I mean, do you like to have copies signed by the authors, do you, or it's not that important?
Oh, good question.
I have had some books signed by the authors. Yes, I was at the THS convention in 1997, and I bought the book Last Dinner on the Titanic. The authors were there. And I also bought a copy of Titanic at 2 a.m. by Paul J. Quinn. He was also at the THS convention in 97, and his books are really good. Paul Quinn wrote two books, Titanic at 2 a.m. and another one after that. I can't remember the title of it. Yeah, they're really good books. But anyhow, he was at the convention, so he wrote a little message in for me and put his signature. And that was really nice to have. And I did meet Melvina Dean, of course, at that convention in 1997. So she signed one or two programs for me. And I've since got her signature in the reprint of the British Inquiry. So I have met a few authors over the years, Don Lynch and Ken Marshall. and others like that. So yes, I do value the signatures that I have.
Well, I think you might, don't you have the limited edition Titanic Ship Magnificent?
I'm
So
doing, yes, I do.
we all
Yeah.
signed those. So you've got one of my signatures anyway. So
Number 207, Steve, I did buy that. Yes.
200. Yeah, you do know that they produced 20 more than they needed.
Okay. So
And they weren't sold. And the only reason they did it is because if some of them were damaged or something like that, you know. So there was a few extra ones. And then when we had to sign the little book plates on it, there was 200, but we had to sign 200. I got 230 in case I made a mistake, because I got them first. And what's so hard is I had to write, my name was third. And sometimes every now and then I put it up where Scott's supposed to sign it, and then where Daniel's supposed to sign it. It's an awful damn mess.
Right.
But I mean, they were all signed Steve Hall, just Steve. But I forgot, and one of them signs Steve with a PH. So somebody's got it.
Okay.
So I don't know. It's not you. You would have said something.
No, it's not me. That was the 2012 leather-bound edition, wasn't it, Steve? They had the
Yeah, that's right. And I got one, and I don't know. I got number 3 or something. I think because that's my name's third on there or whatever. And I ended up getting another one. So what number it is, I don't know. They're in the bookcase over there. As Jo said when she was talking to somebody the other day, maybe yesterday or the day before, wherever. So with Titanic Ship Magnificent, I mean, make sure you put them on the bottom shelf of your bookcase.
I remember
because they will bow the shelf.
Yeah, well, the bookcase that you saw in the photograph earlier has got them together, not quite on the bottom shelf, because all my bound volumes of the Titanic Commutator are there, but on the next one up. But the shelves the bookcases I've had made have been made of a solid New Zealand timber called Rimu, which is a recycled Rimu, and there's no sign of them bowing at all. No, a lot of the books cases you can buy in kit sets from shops and that, you'll find over time the shelves will bow under the weight, but no, none of mine have. No, I like to keep the books. And with the TTSM volume, Steve, what I do is, because they're so heavy, sometimes the pages tend to, if the spine wasn't too strong, they slump, you know, and so I put a bit of, I cut out a piece of archive acid-free card and I slide it underneath the books to keep the pages up.
Stop the pages from dropping down.
Because it's just that is what it is with heavy books. Despite the strength of the spine, they do tend to have a means of pulling them away. So I keep this acid-free card underneath. And
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
just helps.
So mine are sitting over there. I don't look at them because I don't want to remember. I mean, I think I edited nearly all the photos in there, and I'd had a barrel full of it by the time I was finished. I could tell you, we all had. You know, it could have been extra 40 or 50 pages or something, and we just said, no, we're out. Had enough. Publisher wanted it, so take it. And
stop somewhere.
So anyway, all the boys end up doing something anyway, and eventually everyone's name went first on different books I done. So Daniel's name's first on Titanic and Photographs.
Right.
So he wrote most of it, so his name goes first. Bruce, Titanic Ship Magnificent, his name's up the top because he wrote most of it. But what a lot of people don't know about Titanic, the Ship Magnificent, Daniel Clistorna had put a lot of work into volume 2. So I really think that if I had my time again, I'd say to Bruce on volume 2, change the author listing on the front page and have Bruce Beveridge, Daniel Clistorna, you know, and Daniel, but I don't know. I've never told Bruce that, but I think that'd be a fair thing.
Yeah, certainly. I have to concede I've not read a lot of Titanic, the Ship Magnificent, Steve. It requires a serious amount of time to go through.
It's much involved, and you sit there and as Joe said the other day, I mean, sitting there and they're talking about toilet roll holders and things like that. Oh, lordy, lordy, lordy. I mean, who's going, oh, shit, magnificent, we'll have a look at the toilet roll holders. But they serve the purpose.
people
And
Definitely. Yeah. No, I will. I certainly have read passages of them. I've read the lifeboats about that. That's sort of an interesting aspect that's fascinated me over the years, and I tried to build in for the rescue, the slides of the rescue of the survivors in my own book. There's several in there. I think there's, well, for the 15th of April 1912 alone, there's, I think, 31 different slides, pages, call them what you like. But a lot of managed to find a lot of the lifeboat photographs, including ones taken, the rescue by Bernice Palmer, 19-year-old passenger on the Carpathia, who had a photograph and had the good foresight to go up on deck and take some pictures of her own.
So there's quite a few. Most of them, I think, we put in the back of Titanic and photographs. But we were talking about Ioannis Georgiou not long ago, and he made a huge contribution to that lifeboat chapter at the back of Titanic in photographs. So, I don't know. When you write by committee, when you write with other people, and there's 6 or 7 or 8 of you, something like that, everyone writes what they're good at, and then you put it all together. And then sometimes when you end up reading it, you say, 2 different people wrote that. Somebody's got their fingerprints all over it, because sometimes, there's certain ways in America that you write something, and then in Australia and here in New Zealand, we write a certain way, and in England we do too. And I think in quite a few books that you can see what I wrote and what Bruce had wrote. You can really see the difference. But, I don't know. I just think books are fascinating, and you've got a great library there. I'd like to see it one day, mate. If come over one day if you want to make me a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I can certainly do that, Steve. You're very Yeah, I do prefer the hard copy format myself. I'm not really an e-book, although ironically I produced a book in electronic format. I'm not really a Kindle person or an e-reader or that. I even though books take up a lot of space, I always jokingly say to my family when I've said I've got another Titanic book, and they say, "Oh, where are you going to put it?" "Oh, I'll shuffle them around and make room for just one more, no problem."
Put them together, because I do it. So, and it's one or two questions, because I let someone else talk, because we're just talking as you like books and I've wrote a few. What do you think the chances are that book Futility was in the library on Titanic or Olympic?
In you mean public libraries?
In the library on Titanic, the book Futility.
I don't have a copy of it under that title.
Yeah.
I don't think so. No, I've got Morgan Robertson's book under the wreck of the Titan.
That's it,
yeah.
You don't think they had a copy of that on Titanic?
No, probably not. We'll find out, won't we? When I get George's book, we're going to find out what books are on the ship. And George's latest book, he's produced a book called Titanic Books and Bibliophiles. So there'll be information in there about
Well, you'd be one of them. You'll be mentioned in there.
No, these are the books that are actually on board the ship.
He wrote a book about what's on the ship. I was going to cover that later. But anyway, so back to the comments real quick before I lose them in the live feed, because it kind of rolls as we move along. So Terry Bay said, back to the Murdoch book real quick. John Barris said that his is signed by Suzanne Stormer and Murdoch's nephew.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I know, that's what I said. But anyway, and then Terry Bay says, Graeme and Steve, since you're both authors, what goes into writing a book? I think y'all are both kind of talking about that, or you've kind of been mentioning it, throughout the show, as far as what goes into writing a book. It's kind of a long process, isn't it?
Well, I think because all the books that I've been involved with, apart from only one, they've always been written with others. So I'm sort of some great co-author, not as opposed to an author. Could say something else, but what goes into a book? To be honest, quite often I try and leave as much as of it I can to others in the team who know what they're talking about, and I try and fill in the gaps and add bits and pieces. Is it a long job to do it? The last one Bruce and I did, what was it, Titanic in 50 objects or something like that? And we wrote the whole thing, and then the publisher says, no, this is not how we want it, so you've got to write the whole thing again. So you get pretty fed up with that. Is it a long? Yeah, look, you can mumble on about Titanic. I'll go and write a book next week about it. I could just pull things out of all the books that we've done. Oh, we'll take a piece out here, take a piece out, whatever. But I think if you want to write a Titanic book and you're doing it on your own, it'd probably take a good 2 years to do it. And if you're working with co-authors, probably say around about probably 14 months or something like that. So.
Certainly, Joanna, having spent 30 years, of course, buying and reading everybody else's Titanic books, it had long been suggested by other people who knew me, why don't you write your own one? Well, the problem is, of course, trying to find something either new to write about or approaching it from a different angle. And to the best of my knowledge, nobody before had tackled the story from the point of specific dates, as in a timeline. You can either do a chronological timeline, which I don't think has been done either in a book, or from a date-based perspective, targeting the certain events in that. And I wanted to try and create something. I'd already been writing or working on material for another book, a date-based event book on New Zealand railways and tramways, which is another one of my interests. But that's come to a bit of a grinding halt. But I had some success in that. So that and another thing that was on television in the year 2000 inspired me to try and think of the idea of trying to come up with something for every day of a calendar year. It's been done before in general history or world history or sports or other sort of themes, but not really from a date base. I mean, Encyclopedia Titanica has a drop-down menu where you can search by date, but most of that information is concerned with the births and deaths of passengers and crew, articles that were published on dates. And to me, that was just too easy. It's already been done, so I wanted to leave it alone. And I only really resorted to births and deaths if I didn't have something else that I'd found for a particular event. So I wanted to create that. So the writing of it came later. I just kept a list initially of what I could think of, and I trawled through all of my books just looking for dates and things that had happened. And then I started to sit down and how am I going to do this? I write up a brief sort of blurb of what happened, some secondary text or captions that more amplify and more detail, and then try and find illustrations to suitably illustrate each one. And luckily, with the advent
you've just got to start off, as Terry asked, you've got to start off, Terry, because what do you want to write about?
Yeah.
And where do you want to go with it? And then how big do you want it? And then you're going to have to write down how's it going to start and then put everything in chronological order. And I think that takes longer to sort that out than what it does actually write the book, to be honest, because you can't start in the middle of the book and then go to the left and go to the right. You've got to start right from the beginning. Because if you start in the middle, it just ends up, a bit of an awful mess, And I found over the years too, depends on what mood I'm in, is how well I write. And I've looked at some things I wrote years ago and I thought, gee, Steve, you must have been pretty angry that day. And then other days it just seems to flow along really, really nice, and it just, when you look at all the books or something, I just, I think I've wrote some stuff that I would like to rewrite again and think to myself, I could have done that better. Did you only get better by doing something, Graeme?
That's right. Writing is not something that writing is not something that comes naturally to me. I've never been formally trained in journalism or any sort of ability to write. I mean, but over the years I've read so many other books that when you read books, I think it actually instills in you your understanding of sentence structure, grammar, and all that sort of thing, more so than you might have learned at school. And then what you can then apply that to your own work. And I found it's worked quite successfully. So like you, Steve, I would write something down one day and go back 3 days later and say, oh, no, that's terrible wording. I'll rearrange it and write it again. And I just kept on going back to everything I'd written. I can't recite every of the 120,000 words in my own work, but I've gone back and I've revised ever so subtly, God knows how many times until I'm settled with it. Yeah,
that's why you need a good editor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's why
a friend of mine, Kathy, she's really good at it.
Yeah, Kathy helped me out as well. Yeah.
Sorry, back to you. Tells you where to put all the commas, and the sentence is too long. Sort of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's very
important. There's a few more comments coming in. John Barris said Steve's book where he debunks the switch theory had 2 different covers. I think this is when we were talking about like different names and different covers for, different books. It's interesting to see, how, like the progression of different names and different covers. Like the other night when we were talking to David Dyer, I had like a whole like screen full. I was like, so David, I was like, what's your favorite cover? Because he had like 7 different covers for his book. He was like, yeah.
Well, it's hard. The Switch book. That's me and Bruce done that first, and that was in probably, I don't know, 94 somewhere, but I don't know, 98. We couldn't get a publisher for it, and it was debunking it. And Bruce was working at the time, still in the police force in Chicago. And when we wrote it, I'd already written half of it, a while beforehand. I'm a bit of a switch nut. See, I like to rev people up, thinking they really did it, But then, and that's how me and Bruce met online, and we were arguing about the switch theory. And then I said to Bruce one day, let's just write it. So we end up writing it, and I thought it come together just half okay. Now, coming back to what John's asking about, the other version with the different cover on it, we had Art come in, and of course, Art edited all of Ship Magnificent, Titanic, folks, all of those. So he went through the whole book and he tidied it all up and everything, and just made it look better. And we just changed the photos around. So is it the same book? I suppose if you wanted to compare it page for page, I don't know whether we added the extra chapters in it or not. So, it's the conspiracy book. It surprises me because, when the day comes and the history press or somebody else sends you a royalty check or something, and you think to yourself, oh, well, and then you look at which books are being sold, the Switch book. I know who's buying it. But, I should write a book saying they did do it, but, and let me just say too, because I looked it up the other day then, I was curious. I think it was only a couple of days ago that the author of The Riddle of the Titanic, Robin Gardner, I think it was just only a week ago that it marks 8 or 9 years since he passed away. So just have to look at it out of curiosity. So
I think he died in 2017, Steve. So it's 7, and
stomach cancer, I think, Graeme.
Something like that, yeah. And
I had spoken to Robin on the phone many, many times. He was a really, really lovely guy, and he was very confident in what he was writing about. And I helped him, where I could with things, and then I just started to think the more I looked into it, the more implausible the whole thing was. So it'd be great. It would be great if they had switched it, wouldn't it?
I think
I tried to challenge Graeme out to anyone that if Robin Gardner had wrote that book and it was released in 1975, you'd be hard pressed to prove him wrong.
You have that book?
I do have I have all of Robin Gardner's 3 books. Yes, the first one, the second one, which got a bit sillier, and the third one was, I think, the worst of all. But anyway, the Stephen Bruce's first book, 2004, I think it came out, Olympic and Titanic, The Truth Behind the Conspiracy, the one with the jigsaw puzzle design on the front cover.
Oh, yeah. I think I did that. I think I've done most of the covers.
And then the History Press, greatly expanded and updated edition, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, because
beginning of 2012.
We've been talking, I was talking to Amy. Speak about Amy so many times. I mean, everyone should know who Amy Rigg is from the History Press. But we done the limited edition with the Ship Magnificent, At that time, Sam was writing the book, Centennial Reappraisal, and me and Bruce done a chapter in that. And then Titanic photographs had come out, and then we were working with the History Press for an app. And I happened to mention in passing that me and Bruce had this switch theory book. And if you want to, you want to print that up, you can have it if you want. They jumped on and took it. So I think it turned out all right. There's one of them here, one of the things. I don't, it seems to have sold really well, I don't, as I said, I don't have a favourite. I just think, I don't know, Titanic photographs was just something that people wanted. So, and the question comes up, too, Graeme, would you like to see volume 2?
Oh, I would love to see it update. I mean, what I'd love to see is every conceivable known photograph of the Titanic brought together in one volume. But I think that it might be in the too hard basket with a lot of collections and albums now residing in private hands, and some collectors not wanting to make their photographs available for books like that. But it would be great to see it.
Well, I think there are people who have got photographs that no one else has seen, and I don't know who all of them are, and I've never asked them. Well, actually, I have one or two that we put it all in Titanic and photographs and make it one big book. I think we'd have a problem because you're selling one version that's 160 pages, and then you'd be selling another version with the same title. It's got 300 pages in it. You just have to change the name, I think. Otherwise, you're going to lose too many sales with it. But one of the good things about Titanic and photographs is we didn't crop the images.
Yes.
And a lot of people could have said, oh, well, that's great, you haven't cropped it. And others have said, oh, well, that's a pretty lousy photo or something like that. Well, it wouldn't be lousy if I cropped it or we cropped it, whatever. But there's so many great photos of it around at the moment, and they keep turning up. Somebody's finding them in newspapers online or something in the UK or something. And you look at yourself, oh, look at that. That'd be great. I wouldn't mind having that one. So, oh, look at that. I mean, the author has to be dead over 75 years. Oh, take that one, But it's always best to ask.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's no one to ask.
No.
So, but we'll see what happens with it. Sorry, Joe. It's just me and Graeme. Talk to shop.
So John says that he said, Graeme, I bought the White Star book from Brown only a couple of years ago from the Titanic Historical Society. So every once in a while you can find these odd, books from there, the Titanic Historical Society, that are they're still selling them new.
That's right. Correct. Yeah, they are. Yeah, that's right. The one that he mentions, I think it was published in 2001. It was a black cover.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what ship was on the front, but yeah, no, I understand it is still available. I haven't bought it yet. Yeah, it's quite unfortunate now with a lot of books that are coming from the UK or especially the USA. The shipping rates are horrendously high. There's one come out that's only been published. I think the British guy Jonathan Smith published one about all the movies that have been made. I forget what it's called, but it's only available through one of these print-on-demand publishers in the USA. And I think it's going to cost me as much in US dollars to send it here as it is to buy it. So it'll be at about an $85 US dollar purchase, and it's climbing right up into the $140 New Zealand bracket.
It used to not be that bad. I cannot get over how much shipping has gone up over the past few years.
Yes.
Terry Bay says, I would like to write a Titanic book about the ship and its connections to various things that people wouldn't think of, such as horse racing, figure skating, the Holocaust, other disasters, etc. I think it would be an interesting book.
Ooh,
Interesting.
Good make Terry Baker. It's a really good book. And you watch these television shows and they do a heritage thing of some movie star or something or somebody, whatever, and it's really fascinating. But you could take any one of us here and do a show on us and our history and ancestry, and people would still sit there and watch it and read it. And if you wanted to have a stab at something like that, it's only a matter of just finding enough content to put together. And, I mean, you can self-publish, I suppose, if you want. I mean, I don't know, Terry, whether you know, in 1920, I think, there was a racehorse in Australia called Titanic.
Oh.
didn't know
Yeah.
that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it
I had
was.
no idea.
I don't know how many races it was,
Interesting connection.
but yeah.
That looks like it would be kind of an unlucky name for a racehorse.
Well, I don't know. It's look after we've all had our chinwag here. I mean, I'll find it and I can add it into like on your Facebook and some stuff down at the bottom and bits and pieces. So, and
Interesting.
we can add it in some nag. I don't know how many races it won, to be honest, really. You know, I mean, just Titanic means big, so I don't know how big the horse was. I don't know. It might have been a bear. I don't know. But this might have been a stallion, should I say?
Interesting. So let's see. My friend Stefan wants to know if Graeme, if you collect any movies or just books. He said because many movies were done in books prior to movies. I wonder if movies were interesting for you as well.
Yeah, I have all of the main movies that have been made on DVD, and there's been a few books, of course, turned out about those movies. There's been a couple of good books on the movie A Night to Remember.
Yes.
Jonathan Smith produced books on the movie Race the Titanic.
That was the next question John was asking. John said, have you got the two? Do you have the 2 volumes on Raise the Titanic?
I do. I think Jonathan's also now working on a book about the model, the 55-foot long model that was built for the movie, the largest Titanic model ever built. And it's now being, I think, restored somewhere. But anyway, he seems to, he's going to put this out, I can't remember, next year sometime, I think, but it's the world's largest Titanic model. So there's quite a few. I've never seen a book about the movies SOS Titanic 1979 and the 20th Century Fox 1953 movie. They've been mentioned, of course, in books over the years. But no, I have seen all the big movies, and of course, there's been more books written about Cameron's movie than any other. Yeah.
How about No Greater Love? Have you seen that one?
Was that I haven't got the book, but was that a television movie that was made? The Danielle Steele. Yeah,
there was a Danielle Steele book.
It does feature. I did feature it in my book. It's, I think, the second page in after the 1st of January 1862. I think it came out in 1996. So it's in I mention it in my own effort. Yeah, but I haven't seen it. No.
Well, that's just kind of like an inside joke with me and Dan. Every time I go to like, Dan and I encourage thrifting, thrift shopping, so you can get like your secondhand books or whatever. We even do it like on eBay and stuff. And we've gotten some great, autographs and signatures and little surprises and books and stuff. And I don't know. Everywhere I go, like that book haunts me. And I buy it everywhere I go. I can't just leave it.
I haven't seen
Danielle
it in a
Steele's No
while.
Greater Love. But it's not a bad book. I enjoy reading.
I've never been a great fan of novels. I don't read novels. So the only novels I've got really are Raise the Titanic by Clive Cussler. I don't have No Greater Love. And there's one or two others I've recently acquired, which a lady's just written a historical novel about Frederick Fleet. Can't remember his name. It's only just
The thing I liked about No Greater Love, though, is that it followed, I don't want to give it away in case somebody hasn't read it, but it kind of it followed what happened after the wreck and after the aftermath, I guess, what happens to your life, once significant people are missing from it and how you move forward. And so it followed, for like a year or so, after the tragedy, I guess, or even long. Dan, wasn't it? It was longer than that. It was years after how.
I think her siblings grew up too.
From the wreck through the rest of their lives. I thought it was okay, as far as a novel goes, because I don't know, it was interesting. And then the movie based in the novel, I mean, it was a made-for-TV movie. It was, it was okay. It was. I'm willing to entertain anything. Dan and I collect books that are very serious and very rare, like, and if they would call it like the ridiculous, like Indiana Jones in the Titanic and Nancy Drew in the Titanic. What are some other like obscure ones? Uh, uh Sherlock Holmes in the Titanic. What else do we have that's just bizarre?
Oh, the one where they make the pig a character.
Oh yeah, there's a children's book about the musical pig.
A pig on the Titanic. Yeah, yeah.
There's
I
a
don't
pig
have
on the
that one.
Titanic.
I have purchased quite a few books designed for a juvenile audience because a lot of them have illustrations in that you don't see anywhere else. A lot of
That's true.
cutaway
That is
views and other
true.
things. So that the big books like Inside the Titanic, which has got Ken's paintings in, and there's a whole lot of other ones that have been published over the years. The one by Steve Noon, which has got a lot of cutaway views. So some of them I have got quite a few in my library
And
designed for a
the
younger
Tom
audience.
McCluskey books that he's made for children, that are really, if I'm thinking right, I think it's a Tom McCluskey children's book. I mean, well, it's like the wall chart of the Titanic. I always thought that was kind of a kid's book. It's a Tom McCluskey book, but you open it up and it's like this wall chart that it'll literally spread from one end of your house to the other. It's wild. And Dan and I have some really interesting off the wall. But I mean, you're right. Some of the kids' books or even young adult books are interesting, and they have like a lot of the young adult books I have like pull out kind of stuff, like replica. I had one on the show last night, like replica documents and tickets and replica menus and stuff like that. And I don't know. I think that those are kind of neat. Even if you're not a young adult or a child. I have a pop-up book. It's a
Yeah.
child's book. It's like ridiculously hard to get and it's so freaking expensive. I found one time on Marketplace for like 20 bucks. And I was like, but you open it and it's the entire model of the ship and it's a pop-up. And it's like 3 feet long. I think that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just me. Terry is off to bed. Stefan reminded me Titanic Cat. That's another like
Oh,
young
that's
adult.
That's behind you there. Yeah, I don't have that one either. No, that's one I have. I think I have a Polar the Titanic Bear. I've got that one. But and the
That's
yeah.
882 and a half questions. That's a really good book. That's fantastic.
It is. I have an updated
And
version too. There's
that
like,
was one of my big ones when I was when I
yeah.
first started out. That one, someone gave it to me as a present, and I was like,
So I'm going to finish our little presentation real quick because there were a few other things I wanted to touch on before we get too far. Sorry, we did our hot topic.
Joe
So
wanted to stop me before I started bringing up certain.
I know. Before you get to your violent back. All right. So we mentioned this really briefly, but George B. does have another book. So I'm gonna have to get another like bookshelf or a bigger one because my Behe shelf is full. And I don't even have the newest 2 books, the History Press one or this one. So this is ironic. Titanic for books and bibliophiles. I announced this on a show a couple of days ago, but RMS Titanic Reflections, we are launching a new group. It's called White Star Library. I hope to have that up and running within the next couple of days. I was waiting to get that content approved by Mr. Hall and Mr. Beveridge and another person that will remain nameless. But because he didn't like to be mentioned a lot. But so I need to make a few changes to that and we'll get some content out there. And yes, White Star Library. And interestingly enough, it's gonna my first bit of content is kind of focusing on some things that were on the Titanic. And that's what George B. wrote his book about, Titanic for books and bibliophiles. So there you go. So check that out. That's going to be on Lulu. And then Graham's book, Titanic in 366 Days, including Olympic and Britannic, Harlan and Wolff, the White Star Line. I looked at this a few years ago when Graeme and I first became friends, and I just looked at it a little while ago, and it is over 900 pages. But I would like to include this in my new group, the White Star Library, if I could, Graeme.
Yeah, no, you're very welcome. Please do. Yeah, the more that's said, the better. I'll be delighted. Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine with me. No, you go for it. You do whatever you like. As I say, it's a free download to be enjoyed by all. So promote it as much as you can, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Okay, well, I will promote the heck out of this. It's really, really interesting. Apparently I have some material to catch up on. So I need to catch up on that. But it's a really interesting book. It's a really interesting concept and angle to approach the Titanic story from, and it's really fascinating. So you guys check that out. I'll try to post the link on the page, maybe even from the post here, or just post it separately on the main page, RMS Titanic Reflections. And then collectibles, we'll do collectibles in a few minutes, but I'm always talking about how I have Titanic in every room of my house. This is my restroom. And I do have Titanic everywhere. I'm not even joking. I have the shower curtain, the bath mat, hand
What's that
towel.
on top of the? Is that
That
like
is
inflatable?
That is an inflatable Titanic.
No, that's not Titanic. That's Olympic.
Well,
No, it's the Titanic. But
haven't you got a magazine rack next to the toilet?
Oh, that's a good question. Where is it?
Yeah, I got a magazine. There's always books lying on the floor.
Nothing will fit in there. It's the tiniest little bathroom. The master bathroom is pretty tiny, but the center picture is what's up on the wall, like across from the sink. So that little thing, I don't know. I got it in, like, I've told you guys before, I have a habit of just, like, when people sell like large collections of things, I just kind of scoop them up. So that was in like a collection that I bought. It says Titanic 1912 Captain Smith. It's just a real oddity. The Titanic is blue, and
Kind of looks like the Normandy there a little bit.
it's interesting, but I thought it was unique, so I just stuck it in the bathroom. And then I have my light switch in the bathroom. It looks like an outlet, so I had to put an outlet cover over it. But they do make Titanic outlet covers and light switch covers. They're on my recommendation list in the Amazon storefront. The inflatable Titanic, I believe, is also on Amazon. The shower curtains and the bath mats are on Amazon.
I think I had an inflatable Titanic years ago, but it
can totally do your bathroom with products from Amazon. What did you say, Dan?
no, I think I had that inflatable Titanic, but it just deflated after a while or something.
Well, I didn't know what to do with it, so I was like, "Oh, look, it'll go up on the shelf in the bathroom." And then I have like little Titanic models and stuff up on the bathroom shelf, and the little the reproduction of the soap. I have a vanilla like hand towel, so I can switch the hand towels out. So it's like the replica of like a vanilla like ad or whatever. That's my hand towel, my replacement hand towel, I suppose. I don't know. I just went a while and see the little duck up on the like right up under the mirror. It's like a Captain Smith duck. It says Titanic. It's a little rubber ducky. I got that at the Titanic Museum attraction. But they have those online on their website. I don't know. So that's my stuff there. I've been telling you guys about it, and all of our viewers. So that's it. I know that's weird. Oh, Stefan's watching. He says he loves the Titanic shower curtain.
Where did you get that, Joanna? The shower curtain?
I think I got that from Amazon. They have quite a selection, oddly enough, of Titanic shower curtains. I don't know if they still have that exact one. Right. But it matches the light cover.
Famous illustration that was originally printed on postcard, I think, and yeah, way back, 1910, 11. Yeah.
So,
Joe, I have an idea for you.
Oh no. I know there's no Violet Jessup in there. I'm so sorry.
No, not that. No. Well, technically. Your medicine cabinet, you should paint with a red cross and a green line through it so you could have Britannic in there.
Thank you. But even the drawer pulls and the knobs and everything, I got all those from Hobby Lobby.
Steve liked the idea. He thought it was a good idea.
I was just thinking with the shower sort of thing there, Joe. I mean, what do you do? Get in there, turn the shower on, and pretend you're on Titanic and it's sinking?
No, that's actually not my bathroom. That's the girls' bathroom. And it's like the hallway bathroom and the guest bathroom. My bathroom, it's like, well, I mean, it's got seashells and like mermaids and stuff in it.
I imagine it would.
Didn't have enough Titanic stuff to like carry it into that
They're
bathroom.
not worried they'll like break anything in there.
I've told them not to touch the Titanic stuff in the bathroom. So far they've done really well.
You just jinxed
Anyway,
it.
I know. Okay, so now we're gonna play a little game. Graham, I brought some of my kind of rare-ish books. I'm gonna ask you if you have them, okay?
All right.
All right.
Yes,
All right. The first one is a George Beatty book. Do you have this one?
I do indeed. That
Titanic.
was that was a gift actually from Edward Camuda many years ago. He
Oh,
sent me that
cool.
as a gift. So yeah, that was very
How many
nice.
people have
I
this one?
think that's right. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so for any people at home, this is Titanic Safety, Speed, and Sacrifice.
You
This
took
is
it out
not
of the
something,
plastic.
Hmm.
huh?
You took
I
it
had
out
to
of the
take it out of the plastic. I met George a few years ago at Titanicon, and I still had it wrapped in the plastic. And I was like, George, I'm going to take this out of the plastic so you can sign it. And he was like, where did you get that?
Yeah. Good little book that.
I had to tell him where I got it before he would sign it.
Fun fact too, isn't that book a source in one of the Charles Pellegrino books?
Maybe.
I think one of Charles Pellegrino's books uses that as a source.
It's a great little book. Oh, John. John says, I never read it. Yeah, I never read it because I don't want to mess it up. Because I mean, it is quite rare.
It is, yeah.
Am I right?
Hard to get. You got a
Right.
good copy there. I mean, mine's in that condition, and yeah, I do. It sits on the shelf. I have read it. I have read that one. Tick to that one. Yeah.
I read it.
Yeah. Right. What's next?
Okay. All right. So this one's pretty rare too.
Yes,
All right.
Diana Bristow's one. That was one of my earliest books that I got from the Titanic Historical Society in 1991, two, somewhere around there.
Ooh.
Tell me what year it was I can't remember what year it was published.
All right,
1989, I think. It was 89 it was published. Right
It
on.
was 89 that was published.
That
All right,
book
who's
is
the
1
author?
year younger than I am.
Okay, yeah. So yes, I've
author.
funnily enough, Diana Bristow's other book, Titanic Sinking the Myths, which came out
You
in
have that one?
1995, has only just been reprinted in hardback and paperback by a fairly obscure publisher in the USA, and another rather expensive purchase. But I decided to get that one because my original copy, that one there, yes, has several pages missing. I think from pages 7 to 13 inclusive are missing, and a little further on in the book as well. So I never quite got all the pages, but the new edition has everything. Yep. Yeah.
Ooh, were they
Mine
torn
is
out, or
signed by,
were they just like
No,
printed
they
without them?
just weren't printed in the
Mine's
book.
signed by
Yeah, there's
Ryan
nothing.
Katzenbach, and he drew a little
I-
picture.
Right. Okay. I bought my copy from Mainmast Books in England in 1997 or 8. And I started reading it. And when I got to page 7, hello, it's not there. 7 to 13. Yeah, several pages missing. So anyway, but yeah.
So, all right, so John's telling me that that the publisher is Catco. I don't know. It's available on Amazon. It's on my recommendation list on the Amazon storefront. I don't know who the publisher is, though. I can look it up real quick. But it is available on Amazon, the
yeah.
reprint, the re-release of it. I'd love Ryan Katzenbach to come and talk to me about it because it's really interesting.
Yeah.
It is.
It does.
Have you seen the movie?
The book does have its critics, I must say. It's attracted a bit of criticism over the years, but no, it's I don't mind. It's on the job.
So have you seen the movie that goes along with it?
That goofy movie.
No, I haven't. Titanic, is it the same title?
It's kind of like a docudrama. It has
Ed Asner.
Ed Asner and Francis Fisher and Park Stevenson.
Okay. No, I haven't seen that one.
Just as weird as it sounds.
Mm.
Okay. How about this one? give this one?
Yes, I do have that, and that is also now very hard to get. I bought that new. Oh, now where did I get that? I think I might have got that from the book depository. And it wasn't actually that expensive. I paid about 49 New Zealand dollars for that, but yeah, very comprehensive. And I've been asked by John Barris in Australia to keep an eye out for that one. He desperately wants to get his hands on that. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
who's commenting. This is the
but
John who's commenting, John
oh,
Barris.
okay, yeah. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, but I haven't read it yet. No. There's a
Yeah.
smaller one, of course, about Wallace
Yeah.
Hartley that was written by another author. Can't remember her name. But that's
If
a
you
much
were
more.
reading this and fell asleep and it fell on your face, you'd probably suffocate to death. But yeah, it's a huge book. I haven't read this either, but it's absolutely beautiful. I've gone through and read like, excerpts like what I thought looked interesting, like things that I found in here that that I didn't think I already knew about Wallace Hartley. I did so sitting up because I mean, seriously, if this thing like fell on your face, it would hurt.
Yeah.
Like if you're laying down trying to read it.
I haven't
'cause
seen too many reviews of that book, so I'm not really aware of what the wider community thinks of it. But it's another one of those books that came out, and I don't think it was in print for very long.
Mm-mm. It's got like all kinds of beautiful photos of the violin case, like stuff that you just don't see very often, like here is the violin in the violin case. That's something I've never seen before. I've always seen them separate. It's just if anybody watching has an opportunity to get this book, get it because it's just really got some fascinating stuff in it. Like I said, it's got like the general background and stuff of Wallace Hartley, the stuff that you hear all the time, but then it's got stuff in it that you're like, oh, so like I said, I kind of flipped around and looked for things that I didn't already know or things that I had never seen before. This book has got stuff in it that you're like,
yeah.
So this is by Christian G. Tennyson Ekberg. When did this come out? This was John says he said he ended up getting it.
Oh, he did. Oh, good on him.
This came out in 2012.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, if you guys have a chance to get it, it's just
some of them I just happened to stumble upon through advertisement in a book or a review somewhere, and quite sometimes I just happen upon books by accident. And I said to myself, here comes another one. The Titanic disaster. Is that Mr. Varlasek's book or no? Paul S. Varlasek or no? I don't think no, that's a really old one, isn't it? Is that 1912 edition?
It's a 1912 book. It's a paperback edition.
Okay. I don't have any 1912 originals apart from a reprint of Lawrence Beasley's book.
You can see that. Oh, really?
When I say reprint, I mean it was published in 1912, but the one I've got was reprinted in 1913. That's the oldest book that I've got. I think it's Beasley's one. Yeah.
I love the 1912 books. I don't pay a lot for them though. I've told viewers and stuff. I'm like, people try to sell them for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I'm like, I don't care if they look, because very rarely do you find one that's in like mint condition. That to me, that would be the only kind that would be worth like, $100 or a couple $100 because these were mass produced. Most of them are, in about the same condition. But this is one I have not really seen before, and I still didn't pay a whole lot for this. And I think it was still like $25.
Is it or who's the author?
I don't know. It doesn't say. It says that looks like the
It's not one
publisher.
of the door-to-door books that were published in the aftermath of the disaster.
I mean, it probably is.
Okay.
Because I've seen a hardback edition of it before. I don't have the hardback edition of this exact one.
Yeah.
I have the other hardback editions. Let me see if I can just open it a little. I don't handle it a whole lot because it's
I'd like to
paperback.
I'd like to get my hands on a copy of Jack Thayer's book, the 1940 book.
I don't have that one.
That's a rather expensive purchase now, but I've never actually seen one in person.
The only 1912 books I have are the mass-produced ones.
Yeah.
The green one though, I got had a piece of newspaper glued in the back of it, and it has all of the funeral details of Wallace Hartley,
Yep.
like from 1912. Of course, it has somebody's name written in it because all of the 1912 books do. I don't see. All right, it says the Great Titanic Disaster. It's a bunch of okay. By Thomas H. Russell.
Okay, no, I haven't heard of that one. Okay.
Mm.
What year? Is it 1912 or after?
Yeah, it's 1912.
Okay.
Like I
Thomas
said, I
H.
don't want to handle it too much. It is very, very, very fragile.
There you
Like
are.
that front page is not even on there.
Yeah.
Like, I did that backwards.
No, I
Um,
won't spend that kind of money either, Joe. If I see a book online, an original Gracie or Beasley, and it's $550 or something, there's no way I'll pay that kind of money. I'm just not that desperate to get original copies. I know that some authors deal in those and trade in them, and I mean, if I was to find an original copy of Jack Thayer's book from 1940 and it was 150 US or something, I might consider it, but it's a very hard one to come by at an affordable price.
I think the most I've paid for like these 1912 books is like maybe $30.
Yeah, okay.
And that's all I would probably put into it.
I mean, I made an exception in 1998 when I purchased the facsimile reprint of the British Inquiry. Only 300 copies were published and they were £150 each, which at the time was about 450 New Zealand dollars. And I thought, oh, wow, do I really need this? Because the inquiries are all online now. You can look them up and trawl through them. But it was a book that was published in the original typeface. It was signed, it was numbered. And I wrote a pleading, begging letter to the publisher, the Public Record Office, saying, it'll be well looked after. Please, can I have one? And they sent me back a letter saying, you have been selected as one of the 300 recipients. So I wasn't complaining. It still costs a lot of money though.
John wants to know if you have one of the submersible models with the book, like the Steve Santini models.
And no, I don't. Is it a little model as such that came with the book, or I have got
Yeah.
a book by Steve Santini, but I don't think it has a submersible model. Was it a cardboard model that you made up, or?
No, it's
No?
like it's a really it's a lovely model. It's very well made. You know, if Steve Santini contributed to, you know, it's going to be, you know, fairly accurate. But it comes in a little box, and you put it in the water, and you push like the little button in on the side, which kind of represents where the iceberg hit it, and it starts to fill with water. And as it fills, it breaks in half, and so the bow sinks, and then the stern fills up with water, and it sinks. And it comes with a little like thin book that has some information about the Titanic. And it's incredibly rare. John, what year did it come out? It was after I was out of school. It sold through the Scholastic Book Fair originally in schools and stuff, but it's incredibly like rare and valuable now, and like people collect those, and I've turned around and sold them for like $700.
Wow.
Like when people don't know what they have, I'll like buy them up and turn around and sell. Yeah, that's awful. Okay, John said they came out in 1987. Stefan wants to know if you have Les Objets du Titanic, the French artifact.
No, I don't have that. It would be nice to have that one translated into English, and I would certainly buy it, yes. Like P.H. Nosley's book has been translated. But yeah, it would be nice to have that in English. I can't speak French, and I likely will never learn the language. But yes, I understand that's quite a nice book, a lavish book.
It is. I can't read it, but you don't really have to know how to read French to kind of understand what's going on in that book. It's like it's definitely in my top probably three favorite books. Because it shows all the photographs of the artifacts like just as they're coming out of the water almost. I mean, they were recovered and they had to go to this lab in France because they had to be stabilized. Um, and so it shows the process of, process of stabilizing them and trying to preserve them and cleaning them up, and it's really interesting. I
Yeah,
can't read it at all.
sometimes I really wish that books like that could find an English publisher, because I don't think there'd be any doubt that people like myself and tens of thousands of others around the world would want to buy it to add to their library. I mean, it's a sort of, sometimes I do wonder about publishers. They don't tend to sort of want to take on a project. They must know that there are people out there, thousands of people interested in the Titanic, who would buy such a book. But it's unfortunate that sometimes these books, there's one or two in other languages, I can't think of the names of them, but I really wish they would be able to be translated into English and a publisher would take them on. And
somebody told me one time before that there was a commutator that or a special commutator or something that had the French text, that had the translation for the French text for that book.
okay.
I don't know if it was a myth or something. I've not found it myself, but I mean, that's just what I heard. I would love to find it. If anybody knows where that is or if it exists, please let me know. Because I'd love to know what the text is for that book, but I enjoy it just as it is. It's a lovely book and it's full of beautiful pictures of it.
The one book I'd really like to see updated and reissued is Ken Marshall's Art of Titanic. Now that came out in 1998 and was then a complete gallery of all of his Titanic paintings. But since then, I spoke to Ken about it on the Azamara Journey in 2012, and he said, yeah, great idea. Unfortunately, some sort of a publisher doesn't seem to be too interested in taking it on, and I mean, updating it, with all of his subsequent paintings. He's done a lot of paintings in the last 26 years.
Yeah.
And again, that would be a book that would sell immediately. There'd be no trouble finding buyers for an updated edition of that book. Because again, it's one of those books that wasn't in print for a very long time. A few years after it became available, you couldn't get it anymore. You can still buy it secondhand, but I'd love to see it updated and reissued. But it's just one publisher.
That would be nice. But unfortunately, my favorite work of his is not in there. One of my favorites is the book cover that he did that has like the ship in front, and then it's like really early work. It's one of his earliest, and it has the ship, and then the iceberg looks like a skull kind of behind.
Yeah, that was the cover of Rusty Brown's book, The Titanic, the Psychic and the Sea. That's right. Yeah, I think he did that especially for her. That book. Yeah, I think.
But you don't see that anywhere. I would love to be able to have a print of that. I think it's just so
it's quite a haunting painting, isn't it? Yeah,
it is. It's very haunting. Yeah. You just can't find it anywhere.
That's right. Yeah. Yes. It is.
And it wasn't included in that book.
No. Yeah, I think she commissioned him to produce for that book in 1981. Yeah.
But I wish that was available because it's just I love it. But anyway, so we talked to David Dyer I think last week, and you said that you had met him. So have you read The Midnight Watch then?
Yeah, I have. David came over here in 2016. I think he had some business in Wellington and he was staying a few nights in a hotel. So I invited him out here and we met up one day and I hosted him here. We had dinner out and we just talked about various things. A lot of stuff to do with the Californian incident. And of course, I've got a sizable number of books on that. I've pretty much read all of the big books on that. and we shared our views on that and a few other interests. But yeah, interesting guy, David. He's certainly, he's been a teacher, a lawyer, a professional seaman, worked in London, Australia, all over the place, and travelled all over the world, and done his own sort of personal research into the Californian incident. And The Midnight Watch was a historical novel, but he was quite particular about the known facts. I mean, he introduced a few characters in that of his own, but that happens. I mean, some authors have got their own. There's a historical fiction book just recently published about Frederick Fleet. I hope the author has done her research well enough and sticks to the known facts, and then sort of embellishes, I think, his life around the whole Titanic thing. But no, David and I had been quite. We kept in touch over the years. I think he's just published a book on the moon landing, hasn't he? I think another book on the Apollo 11 mission. But yeah, an interesting man, David. Yeah, interesting guy. But
I know, very interesting. Dan and I really enjoyed talking to him. I've been trying to get him to talk to us for a while.
Many years.
Yeah,
good. Good to get hold of him. Yeah.
we are huge fans of his. And we try to spread that book around as much as possible.
Yeah, some
just
people don't take too kindly making a fiction out of a historical event, but it depends on how you handle it, I think. I mean, there's always room for different views, and it seems to have been a success for him as well. Got reasonably good reviews. I do have a copy in my library. It was funny, the day he was here, he was quite taken with the size of my bookcase and all the Titanic books, and he got me to take a photograph of him pulling out the Midnight Watch off the shelf. And then he said later on in the post, he says, I randomly pull out one of the books of Titanic's, and of course it was the very own book. I thought, randomly, David, not quite, you set up the photograph, didn't you? Anyway, it's a very good book.
Well, we enjoyed talking to him, and I think it's an interesting book, and he weaved several historical stories, and I mean he touched on several historical things in there, and I thought it was just interesting. I'm gonna probably try to read his new book too. I don't have a lot of extra time, but I'm gonna try to get around to that one. And I think I got him, I pulled up the slide when we were talking to him, and I'm like, okay, so I know your new book is not a Titanic book. I was like, but we can connect it. And he was like, what? So I was like, I said we had David Kincannon on the show a while back, and I was like, and he was part of an expedition to bring up the F1 Apollo rocket components. It was a Jeff Bezos joint effort. I said, and he's friends with Buzz Aldrin, and Buzz Aldrin was on the mission that you just wrote about. I was like, and Buzz Aldrin has been to the Titanic wreck. I said, and so is David Kincannon. I said, David Kincannon and Buzz Aldrin are good friends. And so I had all these pictures up here, like connect and everything. And David Dyer was like, oh, I didn't know.
Then he ran away. No,
I built Buzz Aldrin's actually in my own book. I couldn't resist having, because he dove down to the wreck. I think the day before or the day after they tried to raise the big piece for the first time. So there's a well-known photograph of him with P.H. Nargeolet and Nautil, and they went down. So I had to include that as a rather tenuous connection with the Titanic. He's the only man that's been down there and set foot on the moon. I mean, so it's quite a unique, really. He's been out into space and down to the wreck, so he features in my book. Yeah, it's quirky little things like that I like to include. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. So I had all these pictures, like lined up, and he was circulating. There was like David and Kincannon and Buzz and the books, and he was like, oh. I was like, see, we can connect Titanic to just about anything. He was like, oh wow. It was neat though.
It was very
so
nice.
I was like, so I can you know, I can read your book because it's kind of like a Titanic book. It's like, I don't know, but Dan and I just love that book. I think it's just it's neat. But I think that um books like that, I think that even, novels have a place in, you know, um Titanic libraries. Um, I love Steve's books because they're like rivet counter books, and I think they're interesting and they definitely have their place. And I would say like most of my Titanic collection is that like more serious books. And then you have your I would say that's really historical fiction. What David did, what David Dyer did. That's real historical fiction. Because we weren't there, so sometimes you have to write fictional characters to tell a story. Even when you have all the facts, you've done all the research, and he really did some research. And that was just fascinating. And then you have your like crazy stuff. I have the crazy stuff in the basement with my movie stuff. You can ask Dan. It's like all in the basement with the movie memorabilia.
Hidden
But
away.
it is.
Hmm.
But
I'd
but I
like
mean
to.
that has its place too.
I could
Because
ask Graeme.
huh?
I just was curious to ask Graeme.
Yes.
Looking at the
Mhm.
books behind you, I mean, you haven't got them by author, or how have you got them sorted out by
They're
colour, size,
by size,
by
by
size?
size, the height. I try and when I design the bookcase that they're sitting on, I took an average height of certain groups of books and designed the height of the shelves around that. I mean, there's not a lot of room to get my finger in over the top of books to bring them out, so I've got to sometimes get a ruler in between them and jimmy them out, to get at them. But the bigger ones on the lower shelves, yeah, I've got them in by size. Yes, I know. Just the other day, I was trying to look something up and thinking, "Where's that book?" I stood there for about 5 minutes trying to find it on the shelf, and then eventually I found it. Yeah, that's the one. And each out it came. So
I was just curious.
Yeah.
Another thing, because I'm curious, it's a question I could ask you three. Because we were talking about Titanic and photographs. I don't mean to harp on it, but for you guys, what's your favourite photo of Titanic?
Without question, for me, it's Frank Beacon's image that he took in Southampton Water on the 10th of April, 1912. I don't think there's ever been a better photograph taken. There are others taken around a similar time in Southampton Water, but he went out with his big bulky camera in a little boat and he took two pictures. The first time I saw these was in Walter Lord's Illustrated A Night to Remember, but the one of the bow shot, which I've got on a large print of it, that I think is absolutely magnificent. It's very sharp, very clear, and the Beacon family, and still operating their pharmacy today, I think at Cowes on the Isle of Wight, you can still make that picture available to purchase. It's absolutely wonderful. That's my.
I know the photo. What about you down there, Joe? What's your
Um,
favourite photo?
Gosh, I think it's just hard to pick one, to be honest with you. There's so many that are just really majestic. Um,
No, he wasn't asking about the Majestic. He was asking about the Titanic.
Yeah.
um,
The magic stick.
Like one of the launch photos, Joe, or a picture leaving Southampton, perhaps.
Sitting out.
I think probably one of the South. I don't know. Let me go to Dan. I'm gonna find it.
Dan, which one do you like down there, Dan?
What's the one with the guy on the bench? Is that the one you were talking about, Graham?
That's what I'm talking about. I think that's what I think.
Yeah, you mean pulling away from the White Star Dock? Berth
Yeah,
44?
with the guy on the bench to the right. He's about.
He's in the
The fellow who's
foreground.
on the bollard.
Yeah, the
Benjamin,
gentleman in the
Benjamin
foreground.
Steele. Benjamin
And-
Steele, I think, isn't it,
Yeah,
Graham?
I think so. And it's got
White Star
the
Superintendent.
tug. The
I'll
tug's
show you.
pulling
Just
away.
to show you.
Yeah, that is a very nice picture that was taken. Yeah, around.
Yeah,
There's a couple of tugboats in the background pulling the ship away from berth
that's
44.
right. And
Yeah, that's a very nice picture too.
there's another photo taken probably within 30 seconds of that too. which appeared in the Daily Sketch.
That's
And
right.
it's not really a very good photo, but it's clearly probably taken 30 seconds later.
Yeah.
So that's a good photo. It's like that.
Yeah, it always
I like the
pops into
photo.
my head. That guy and the picture always just pop into my head.
Yeah, well,
Because I'm like,
he
would
was
that
in
be me?
charge.
Would I just be sitting there, you know, like hanging out and just watching?
He was in
But
charge,
yeah.
that fella. Benjamin
Just-
Steele. Pretty sure it was him.
I'm just trawling through now my book to see if I can let me get up to April here. No, that's May. I'll keep going. I've just pulled this PDF up. I'll see if I can pretty sure. I don't know that I've actually identified. No, keep going. God's sake, there's too many. It's very slow at the moment. And you keep talking amongst yourselves, and I'll just
Okay, and I'm like trying to find it so I can show it to everybody because I can see it in my head. I'm like,
okay.
just
I've
don't
got
know.
I like this.
I've got the picture up now. I've got here of the gentleman in the foreground. I haven't identified him, but the photograph is taken by H.G. Lloyd, the Southampton and District Pictorial. I think that's the one that Dan's referring to, where there's still
Yep, there you go.
a mooring line going from the bow to the quay side, and there's a couple of tugs in the background. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. And yeah, the
that
gentleman
photo is
bowler hat sitting on a bench on the it's not a bollard. I'm not sure what it is, a bench of timber or something that he's sitting on in the foreground.
it's Benjamin Steele.
Okay.
Graham.
Oh, there it
White
is. Yeah.
Star Line Southampton superintendent. So
Oh, okay.
he's
Oh,
actually in charge.
did you identify that in Titanic?
Yeah, long time ago.
Okay.
So
Oh,
that
my-
photo there was sold by the UFTM years ago, come under the umbrella of Courtney, I think.
Right.
And
Oh,
but that photo there is heavily cropped,
yes.
and I've only seen it uncropped once, and it's you can see a lot more.
Yeah,
You know, so
that's a really nice one too. Yeah, definitely.
yeah, no, that's really good. I think I've got a high resolution or something. I think, but
Even got the
just a
French.
sort of
Clearly, you see there
So
the
it was-
French flag flying,
Just
can't you?
pulled
On the
that one
main
off the
ones?
internet, just random.
yeah. Well, it wasn't
But that's
really a
one I
great
think I
day
like
there,
the most.
Lee. I mean, it was a bit overcast and a bit chilly,
Mm.
and I think there was someone out the top of that crane actually was that you could see someone up there, and apparently somebody on the quayside there was had a movie film camera, and apparently they took some film of Titanic departing, but it's never turned up. So
Yeah.
big boat.
But when you look
Okay.
at it like that, I think it's so fascinating. Just if you look at all the little detail, like what Steve's pointing out, all the people. I love this little guy just sitting right here, just watching everything.
Okay.
I would love this photograph though.
Mm.
Have you ever heard of Merrick Saleh? He's an
Yes.
artist.
Yes.
I think he's friended everybody in the Titanic community, but he's really, really nice. He's the first group that I was invited to help admin, Remembering Titanic. He's one of the admins there. But I bought like a couple of digital pieces of artwork from him, and then I have an original watercolor upstairs that he did. He's from Dan, where's Merrick from? Slovakia or no?
I want to say that sounds accurate.
It's one of those places over there in the former like Soviet Union, but it's not that anymore. But anyway, really nice guy, wonderful artist. He does like wood burning and woodwork and painting. But anyway, so he painted this. This is one of the painting that he did is one of the pieces of art that I digital pieces of art that I ordered. I mean, he painted it and then he like scans it and then you can buy it, the digital artwork for like $5 to $10. And I had it printed on a canvas. I'll show it to you guys. Hold on a second. I probably should have just showed this first instead of like trying to find this. I don't know if there it kind of shows up.
Ooh.
But this is a piece of Merrick's artwork. Shoot.
Not many people, Joe, paint or draw Titanic from the starboard side or the port side. Port side's very rare photos. There's not many port side photos of Titanic really, apart from well, it was at Southampton. So
I wish I could show all of it because he takes like photographs and stuff, and he can, you know, replicate those in art. And I think he does a beautiful job.
no, that's very nice. No,
And then I
looks-
bought a
looks
wreck
good.
photo as well. I mean, not a wreck photo, a wreck painting. This is really pretty. Nice. Anyway, I don't know why he doesn't sell it like he used to, but yeah, that's my favorite.
Must
we just
be.
got
What time is it over there now, Graham? 2 o'clock, is it?
4:08 p.m. Yeah.
Right. So what time does it get dark over there?
At the moment, it's starting to get dark a bit later. About 6 o'clock. How about 6 at night?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
When we have the daylight saving, it doesn't get dark to about 9 o'clock at night, which is quite good in the summer.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. It gets dark here. I don't know. Further north, whatever it was, I think it's dark at 5:30.
I said I was going to go and see my mother this afternoon. I better think about starting to go soon because she's at a care home 20 minutes away, so I'll have to. Yeah, but I better not. She might have forgotten, of course, that I said that this morning, but I did tell the staff that I was going to go and see her. But anyway, keep
How
going.
old's your mum, Graham?
Coming up 80. Yeah.
Yeah, my mum's 95.
Yeah. Got any more comments, Joe, from viewers, listeners?
Oh, let's see. I got off of the live feed so I could find that picture. Ooh, hold on. Oh, Stefan says that my print canvas looks awesome. Josh Noble is watching. Hold on, let's see. Hold on. Let me get to this comment section. Hold on, y'all. I'm coming. Okay. All right. Josh Noble says Robert Welch's photo of the Titanic heading out for her sea trials is one of his absolute favorites. I have a large print made from the original negative.
That's
Fair,
nice.
fair call. Yeah, that's several, of course, taken from slightly different angles. But yeah, he's right. That is one of the most well-known pictures.
Yeah, that's one of the Kempster photos or something. Welsh took the photo, couple, and then the Kempster or whoever it was. That's a collection. I'm not too sure.
That's
So
right.
somebody bought those photos and put them in a book. I think, didn't they? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was what was his name? British collector. Yeah, but no, the Welsh photographs, the black and white ones, yeah, very well known. The stern shot.
They're well known, but the other ones that were taken and they were sold on eBay a while ago, and some Titanic person had purchased them or something, and I think they put them in a book.
And then Josh says that if you look closely at the forecastle deck, you can see Chief Officer Wild supervising the crew. That's interesting. Stefan wanted to know how much my canvas print was. That was really cheap. You know how you guys get like ads for things in your Facebook feed? That was like an ad that popped up in my Facebook feed. I think for like a cheap canvas print, and so I clicked on it, and I think that ended up being just like $20 or $30. Because I bought like the digital artwork from Merrick for like $5, and then I waited till like that went on sale, and that was just literally me printing my digital image onto, stretched canvas. So it looks like it was something really expensive, but it wasn't.
You got to be careful what you click on, Joe.
I know.
He's right.
I told you guys the other day about me tooth. Said, oh, it needs a root canal, whatever it was, and now it's calcified. Kept trying to find it, and in the end, come home, had a pie, and it broke off. And I had a look online, and I was just looking calcified tooth and all this type of business. All of a sudden, I'm getting all these ads that ask me if I want dentures. And I thought,
oh no,
dentures. Oh, I still got my bloody teeth. Just one of them broke. Oh, not yeah. Just, oh, I don't know. I don't know how it gets associated with things. And I suppose before Graham catches up with your mum, is it your mum?
Yeah.
What do you think about the idea of AI writing Titanic books? You plug in it and say, AI, can you write me a Titanic book?
Oh, I
And
know
it writes you a whole book.
Yeah.
What do you think about that idea?
Well, I'd be skeptical as to how accurate AI would. I don't know if I favour that at all, really. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no end to what people will conjure up nowadays, are there really, in respect of technology? But no, I
Yeah.
think that I much prefer, like I'm old-fashioned in respect of, I like my books rather
Yeah.
than electronic books. I like the hard copy version, so I much prefer a human to
Human sort of book.
uh,
The other thing I was going to
research.
say before you go, I bought some 1912 pennies, Australian pennies.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, okay. Where's the thing? Here it is. There, look.
That's there, 1 penny.
Oh, it's back to front.
12. No, it's
And I was
not.
curious enough to have a look, and I thought, well, if I got one of these, maybe a 1912 New Zealand penny. Have you ever thought about buying any New Zealand
No,
currency from
no,
1912?
no. I'm sure I could probably
Yeah.
find a place where I could acquire that kind of thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was just curious because I wanted one to put on a key ring, and they gave me 9, and I drilled a hole in one and wrecked it. The drill, he drilled a hole in 2 of them, and I got 6 left. And I've already said to Joe, I'm going to send her one. I'm going to send Joe 2 because then she can send the other one to Dan. But I was just curious whether if you had any coins.
No, they are not that age. No, not that vintage. No.
Not yeah. Do you know how much? Do you know how much a 1912 Australian penny's worth? 80
No,
cents. 80
how much?
cents.
80
80
cents.
cents.
Wow. Huh.
80 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah, 80 cents. But then it all just depends. You're going to buy, shillings and all those bits and pieces and that. So, but what's curious about that is to get a 1912 English penny,
Mhm.
and they were pressed in January or February. Now, if you can get one of those, it's probably quite likely that some of those minted pennies were actually on Titanic when it left Southampton, because they would have been in circulation for about 6 weeks or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I don't know, find pennies down there, something, I don't know. Didn't somebody say the other day, Joe, something about gold coins or something? Was it Julie?
Oh, that was
Gold coins? Well, they'd still be there.
Yeah, it was Julie. Julie said that her relatives, we were talking to Julie Williams last night, and she said that her relatives who were on the Titanic lost their gold coins. They had $100 in gold coins, American gold coins, and they got left in their room. I think that's what kind of brought me to the question tonight. You know, what did everyone think about recovering items from inside the Titanic? Because somewhere inside the Titanic is,
100.
those gold coins that Julie Williams.
But you would
Yeah.
scoop it up, wouldn't you, really? I mean,
Mhm.
if you saw it there, you'd sort of turn the camera off. And,
I mean, it's interesting. I mean,
I know what I'd do.
and there are still safes and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
people know where these things are, Steve.
Mm.
This is Albert Caldwell and his wife. It's not hard to figure out which room was theirs. Do you go in? Do you find their stateroom? Do you,
Yeah.
you're second class passengers, do you go in? Do you find their stateroom? Do you look for the gold coins?
Titanic had a lot of leaks, but there's a lot more leaks in the Titanic community too. So there's quite a lot of things probably out there in that debris field. And the only problem is if you see it and you haven't got a basket to pick it up, you'll never find it again. And that's what the problem is. I mean, you can go out there and say, "Wow, look at this. Oh, I'll grab this." And then if you go back a couple of days later on to go pick it up, you'll never find it again. Because, I don't really know. I mean, you'd have to go down there for a big vacuum cleaner, or a big magnet.
Well, I will say this. The new imaging technology it allows them to map where everything is. They can see everything. They can map where everything is, down to the tiniest piece of china, silverware, jewelry, glass. They can see everything.
That's good.
So Magellan did it, and supposedly what RMS Titanic Inc. is out there doing is better than what Magellan did. So
I
But
hope,
the
I hope,
currents now,
I hope there's a book that comes out of this expedition, Joe. I hope that RMS Titanic Inc. and other parties are going to produce a book of all this terrific imagery that we are hearing about. I'd love to see a book made out of that.
right.
That'd be
Wow.
something.
I would
think everybody would
like
love
to
see
have
it,
seen
but
one
I
of
know it's
those
gonna
bloody
happen.
Titanic bloody rebuilds finished and could have wrote a book on that.
That would be nice.
Yeah,
Or
it would
even,
be. Yeah.
I would love to see a book about what happened in China with that catastrophe. I mean, it didn't come to fruition, but I would like to
Well,
hear.
it's still there and it's rusting away. I would
Yes.
imagine probably they'll scrap it probably in a couple of years, probably.
But somebody we know was part of that and has a story to tell. I think that, people would want it. I mean, because people are always asking what happened. I mean,
Yeah. Well, it would make a good book. So whoever this
Make a
person is, I can
book.
help them write it if they want.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
there you
saying,
go.
see, Joe had a
Got all
book
the
idea.
photos. Not
Mhm.
all the photos, as long as you like
Exactly.
photos of a certain author's head in it, a lot of them. I said for
Okay.
Pete's sake, take some photos without you in it.
I think the photos with him and her are very nice. Anyway, so we have another question from the viewers. This is from John Bonham. He says, "Hi there. What do you guys think about the new photography scans of Titanic? I think it's wonderful that it vindicates Ken Marshall's artistic vision and talent."
Hmm.
I'm assuming the viewer, John, is referring to the Magellan scans that have been released. And yes, they do very much resemble Ken Marshall's paintings. What little we have seen of these scans, the Magellan ones that have been released.
Well, Ken, of
So
course,
yeah,
Ken, of course, created his artwork from examining thousands of pictures that were taken in 1985, 86. Now, I
Mhm.
believe he's refined quite a few of the paintings since then based on other expeditions that he's made with James Cameron and co. But it may be that in time, because of the existence of the Magellan scans and this latest expedition, that he may well revise them again. I mean, it's probably Ken's the sort of person I think who likes to keep his paintings right up to date and accurate, and I admire him for that. I certainly hope that these scans, the current expedition is doing very much. Is it what Magellan did and the other company did last year? They're scanning the whole wreck again and creating a three-dimensional rendering of the wreck, presumably in
They've
greater
just got better
resolution.
kit. Just got better
Okay.
kit with them.
Oh, right, okay.
And I think this time of the year is the right time because the current's going the right way.
Yep.
And the silt's not disturbed.
Okay.
So therefore the water's clearer, and then you're going to get higher quality photos.
Right. Well,
So depending on what time of the year that you go, it depends. Because at the moment it's what? Oh, let me have a look here. Now it's actually 2:20 a.m. at the Titanic wreck site right now. So there you go. All those years ago at sun. So it is 2:20. I know it's 2:20 a.m. at the wreck site because someone told me what time it was because they asked me what time it was here. So I thought it was 11 hours difference, but apparently 12. And I don't know whether they're using the same time measurement that they would have used on Titanic, or I thought they might be using Greenwich Mean Time. But when I had a look, no, they're not using Greenwich Mean Time. So I don't know where they get the time from, actually, to be honest, because it's an hour out or something like that anyway. So, but it's been good talking to you, Graeme. Love all those books. Absolutely fantastic.
I'll keep buying them.
Yeah.
Quite why I buy. Well, I don't quite buy all of them, but I'll keep buying them as they
Or do you ever come over here?
I come to I've got family in Melbourne and Perth, but not often to Sydney. No.
No, well, I'm actually in Byron.
But okay.
It's most furthest east point, whatever. So the water's sort of just there. So yeah, but if you ever come over,
right.
you know, I mean, you know, there's a spare bed here upstairs, mate.
Thank you very much.
No, it's just, yeah, we've got a spare queen size bed up there. It's just sitting up there in case people come and visit something, you know. So if you happen to come over here, come up.
Well, I might find a reason to come to Sydney sometime and visit a few people. Yeah.
Sounds like a good idea. Go to the Maritime Museum.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
That's,
maybe line up a talk at the Maritime Museum.
well, yeah, I could do it. I have actually put together a talk on my Titanic book, how I went about it, and for it's more for a general audience, but I include sample slides, you know, for covering different themes. And I've even actually thought about putting together a series of presentations, lifting out themed slides for certain themes out of the whole thing. For example, controversies and that, inquiries and investigations, people and personalities, shipbuilder and shipyard, that sort of thing, and making up a whole series of PowerPoint presentations out of which you can more elaborate on the content and the slides and tell a bit of a story out of each one. Yeah.
Who's that? Inga? Inga?
Yeah, I'd also go and see her. Yes, definitely. I've been in touch with her by email and Facebook. Yep. Yep. She was very helpful with the Harold Lowe slides. Definitely. Yeah.
Got to know the right people to talk to, mate.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I've made the acquaintance of a number of very helpful people in the last 10 years.
Yeah, most of them are pretty helpful and very genuine and like to share. And I think sometimes others that perhaps might not be too quick to share, they just might be shy and just, you know, want to keep under the radar too, you know. You know, because there's a lot of people I know and they just, yeah, they won't talk or do anything only because they're too shy, you know. And that's it. And the only problem is if you've got a really unique photo, as soon as you put it out on the internet, it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll be everywhere.
Yeah,
oh, look, here's a new photo of Titanic. All of a sudden, the right clickers, there's 10,000 times it's gone.
yes. Yeah, well, I have to say, I mean, I would not have been able to do what I've done really without the availability of the internet, Facebook, and the people making available various photographs, prints, facsimile documents, or items they've found in newspapers that they've clipped out and put online.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done it really without that kind of information.
Because you could take your book and you could actually do an audio of it with pictures and, you know, talk about them all, you know.
Yeah, I could. As I say, as far as the PowerPoint presentations go, that's what I'm planning to do because there's not a huge Titanic community in New Zealand that I'm aware of. I've got a few other friends around the Greater Wellington area, but I just produce these presentations for the greater benefit of the general audience. I go and talk to a lot of retirees clubs. They have social groups where they meet once a month and they get me along as guest speaker and I like to enlighten them, and they've all gone down pretty well.
Well, it's not hard to talk to people, is it really? I mean, I think Joanna seems to like steer most conversations to Titanic when she goes somewhere. And anyone who does like Titanic, they sort of drop it and see somebody bites, and then if they bite, then you can talk about it, and all of a sudden, you can't help yourself, and you know, there's whole conversations about Titanic, you know, and I don't know, the same thing about pyramids and Stonehenge and whatever it is, but it's if you really like something, you just talk to someone, and usually if you say Titanic, they're in.
Yeah,
it's a great conversation starter, Titanic. So, you know, always a big question I ask. Why does it sink? Well, as I always say, Joe, because it was full of water. So,
and it's funny how, you know, that can really, and this is going to sound hokey, break the ice. People are like, well, you know, what do you do? You know, what do you like to do? I mean, just in whatever setting that you're in. Oh, well, yeah, I do this for a living, but I really like to do this. You know, this is what I do, you know, when I'm not working. And they're like, oh, you like Titanic? Yeah, I do. And you know, I do like live streams, and I like to talk to people. I like to, you know, do social media stuff, and I collect stuff, and I go to, you know, conferences, and they're like, oh, really? Wow, I like the Titanic. Oh, you do? Okay. You know, what do you like? You know, and you know, it just starts a conversation. sometimes you can be in a really, tense situation, and you just feel like, hey, so what are you interested in? What do you do? What are your hobbies? And you get people talking, they're like, well, what are your hobbies? What are you interested in? And you're like, well, yeah, I'm kind of nerdy. I like, I've been interested in the Titanic since I was 6. And it just kind of gets the ball rolling, and then you find your conversation, and that just kind of takes the, if you're in a tense situation, then it just takes the focus off of whatever that is. It's kind of because everybody knows about the Titanic, and I think everybody has like a kind of a mild interest in it. Even if they're not like
Okay.
us.
I went to talk to a group a couple of weeks ago, and I'd created this little presentation out of my book, which I call Titanic: Unknown, Unusual, and Unbelievable. And it was about 40 slides from a book that I put up on screen, and I sort of tell a bit of a story about it. And because they're the more obscure and relatively unknown things that we know about the Titanic, but the general public is sort of blissfully unaware that did actually happen. Or this author wrote a book called Futility in 1898, which had those sort of things. You'll find the general public is unaware that these even occurred or exist. And the audience was quite receptive at the end. They sort of got a lot of questions. People they didn't know that, or some of them don't even know that the Titanic had 2 sister ships, and what became of them, and that sort of thing. So there's a whole lot of things that you can elaborate on for the benefit of a general audience that you don't necessarily have to impart on those who do know about the Titanic story. So
it's not hard to draw them in, is it? But
no.
in every time you're talking, there's always going to be someone say, I hear it wasn't Titanic, it sank.
That's right. I've had that.
And you can't get away from it. It
No, you can't,
happens every
unfortunately,
time.
no. I would rather not talk about that, but you can't get away from it. Now, people
No,
read stuff
because
on the internet, and
and
it's
I really think it's not necessarily the books. The books were the creator of the idea. I do get that. But I think the whole thing's propagated mainly by the media. When they've got nothing to do, they say, oh, here's a switch theory. You know what I mean? I don't think it's people like you or I, or people in general, talking about the switch theory. I think they just see it in media. And it's, it didn't do this. Oh, it was whatever it was, So I don't think there's a great big following for people who believe in the switch theory, to be honest. I mean,
there's probably a great following for conspiracy theories, but yeah, I mean, people have tried to put the whole thing in by banning it on social media and on Facebook pages and that, and let's stop talking about it. But you're not going to.
Yeah, but if you stop talking about it, if you talk about it, you've got to laugh at it, and that's the only way to stop it. But you're going to have people come in, and as soon as something comes up there, oh, a load of rubbish, da 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 da. Look, just let the thread run. Let people say what they want to do, and then just quietly shut it down in a week or something. Because the only way to kill something is to laugh at it.
Yeah,
isn't it really?
It'll be old news tomorrow, won't it? When
it's just rubbish. I mean, geez, I still remember fish and chips being wrapped up in newspapers.
Yeah.
I was just trying to get you to say fish and chips, but
I see. Oh, sorry, I let you down, Steve.
You didn't
I'll
take
try next time.
All right. All right. All right. I don't have any more questions. Anything, Joe, or something? So
anything else, Joe?
We've got just a few comments coming in. Don Bottom says, let's see, the story of Violet Jessup is amazing. I figured Dan would appreciate that comment. Dan is a fan of Violet Jessup, and she does have an amazing story. Dan actually wrote an amazing article or kind of a story about Violet Jessup. We'll have to put that out there in the new group, the White Star Library.
I'd love that.
So we'll have that up and running and launched here in a couple of days. For those viewers who are still with us, that's some advanced information. We'll hope that you all will join us in the White Star Library. Have some exclusive content in there that you won't see anywhere else, and we'll continue to bring some wonderful conversations with authors in the White Star Library and book reviews and stuff like that. And tomorrow, this is some other news. We will be speaking with Cliff Ismay tomorrow. It'll be tomorrow afternoon for me here on the East Coast. I don't know what it'll be for you guys, for Graeme and Steve, but it'll be an episode of Deep Conversations. I haven't gotten to want to do one of those in a while, so so Deep Conversations with I'm sorry, why did I say Bruce Ismay? I meant Cliff Ismay. Cliff Ismay,
Oh, you
not
said Cliff.
resurrecting Bruce. It's a Deep Conversations with Cliff Ismay tomorrow afternoon. So looking forward to that. Anyway,
I take it, Graeme, you have Cliff's book.
Yes, I do.
Mhm.
Yeah,
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 good book, isn't it?
yeah, I did buy Cliff's book. Yeah,
No, it's a good book.
also have Wilton Oldham's book, The Ismay Line, which came
Yeah,
out
yeah.
not an original copy, but the reprint of a few years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I keeping abreast of the forthcoming titles quite easily.
Mhm.
Add them into a spreadsheet, and as I buy them, they get dropped off the list, and a few more next year.
I don't know if there's any new books that'll be out in April. Usually publishers like to have the book out around February, around there, somewhere around there. I haven't heard of any great number of books that are going to be sort of, oh, here it is in April next year. It's
I
maybe
think I can't remember his name. There's a book being published about Captain Smith and his daughter, Helen
Yeah.
Russell Cook, next
Yeah.
year. So that'll be an interesting slant on it. I can't remember.
Wasn't Captain Smith's house, wasn't it supposed to be haunted or something?
Oh, I don't. I've been to Captain Smith's house in Liverpool, but I haven't heard anything too much about being haunted. No.
Yeah, because
There's a woman who wrote a
he,
book.
he must have had a house at Southampton too, because when he brought the ship down from Belfast, he went
That's right.
went home or something. So I don't know. I've never looked it up really.
Mm.
I don't know idea, really. So,
In Simon Mills' book, Titanic in Pictures, there's a little segment about Captain Smith's wife meeting an actor who was playing Captain Smith. I think that would just be so surreal, you know?
Oh no, that was his daughter.
Daughter, yeah, daughter, yeah, his
Guy
daughter,
from Right to Remember.
Helen Russell
Naismith.
Cook. She met
She met an
Lawrence
actor that-
Naismith, that's right, during the making of A Night to Remember in 1957.
Yeah.
She was on
I
the
think
set.
that would be so strange.
Yeah, there's a well-known
Um,
photograph of the two of them together.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think, I don't know. Wouldn't that be weird, you know, meeting someone who's playing your father in a movie about his death? I don't know. I don't know if I could do that.
well,
Um,
I don't know. But
I don't know.
I don't know. What could you say? Wouldn't
I
call
don't
him
know.
dad, would you?
No, well, she was apparently quite overcome by the similarity of the actor with his costume on to her father. Yeah, she was 14. I mean, when he died, she remembers him in
Mhm.
1914, and then of course she unveiled the monument to him in Lichfield in
Yeah.
when was that 1914? Yeah, she was 16 at the time, but yeah, she lived to be 75. Died in 1973.
75. Yeah, 75. Bit early.
Hmm.
You know, 75. I'd like to live a bit longer than 75, but who knows? I've got no idea. See what
Well,
happens.
people are living longer now, Steve.
I don't know. Mum's 95, so I've got
Oh.
mum's genes. I might live to 90, but I don't know whether I want to live to 90 or something. You know, I don't know. Somewhere between that and 90, I might write one or two more Titanic books. I don't really know. I know
You've got
one
lots
thing. My name's going first on the next one, Bruce. Yeah, you got me laughing too. What's that thing you say, Joe?
Where's
Anywho.
that coloring book? Is your name first in the coloring book? I need to go get that. Or did you
What,
put
the
Bruce's
coloring
name?
Yeah, Bruce. I don't know whose name's on the colouring book first. My name is, isn't it?
I'll have to go upstairs and get it.
My
Next time
name
we
is
do,
first.
I'll make sure to make a note of. Did you get that one? Graham, did you
Yeah.
get the Titanic book
Yes.
by Holland or Beveridge and Hall?
I did, yeah, yeah, and
Now,
also
you know,
Steve's other
Oh.
one. What was it?
oh, infographics.
That's the one, yeah, as well.
I don't think they reprinted it anymore. It's only sort of a little book, you know.
Yeah.
Favorite book.
But
Don't get him started on that one.
when we done the colouring in book, they didn't want any photos to colour in of the wreck or the ship sinking, and that's why there was none in there.
Oh,
You know?
okay.
So, and the infographics thing or something, whatever it was, I think that's rather neat, a little infographics thing or something. I saw it the other day there. I saw it on the PDF file, and I did see that in the infographics book, Titanic's got 4 blades on the centre propeller. And I'll tell you what, Mark's going to be disappointed if it turns out it has got 4.
Yeah, well, they're gonna
Because it could easily have 4.
come down there, go down there, and then maybe that's something they can
Well,
scrape away the silt and move it out the way. And
Propeller blades.
look, I tell you something, Graeme. Now I don't know. I think Mark's onto something there, and I think he's right with the 3 blades, because he's got some information that says there's 3. Prove it had 4. The only thing that when I look at the ship and its speed, whether they were just seeing how fast it would go with 3-bladed centre propeller, I don't know whether that they were looking for any performance. Was the ship's speed enhanced by having 3-bladed centre prop? I really don't know, really. And no one will ever do. And I think quite a people actually went underneath it in a lifeboat, didn't they? And they looked up and seen the propellers right above their head. And then, which is too bad they didn't have a camera. Saved a lot of arguments, wouldn't it? I can't remember. Boxall. Yeah, Boxall.
that's right. He rode his
Boxall
boat.
actually went underneath it, didn't he?
Yeah, well,
Because Boxall-
around the stern, yeah.
Yeah, he went round it, and he
That's
said
right.
that he passed underneath it. And there's a chap from Scotland, Flanagan. He doing drawings just like 12 months ago, and he done a drawing because I asked him. I said, "Do a drawing of the boat going under the propellers or something like that, you know." And I sent him some information. I think Dylan said that they passed right underneath the propellers. He said he could almost put his hand up and touch it. So anyway, that gives you a good idea, actually, you know, what angle it was when it broke in half, wasn't it? It has to be a certain angle, because Lightoller, eventually he jumped off the front, and then he started swimming, and he's swimming towards where the crow's nest is. And he said where he was, the water was nearly level with the crow's nest. Now that's going to give you the angle the ship's down on, because the crow's nest's here, to work it out. But I think he was getting pulled down. Then he had a gun or something, heavy gun. So he let that go. So he dropped that pistol. Now, when he dropped that pistol, it would have landed on the forecastle deck of the Titanic. I don't know. It should still be there, shouldn't it?
Well, I don't
One
know.
would have. Then he got sucked up against the fiddly grating, didn't he?
Mm.
And sort of that little 4 thing at the back and sort of whatever. He was very lucky he got away with it. So
Maybe they'll find a firearm with the new scans.
well, I don't know. It's just the wooden handle be gone. I don't know. It's no need looking in the Marconi room to see if you can find the bloody thing they cost the bloke on the head either, because it would have all rusted away.
Mm.
And this is what I was saying before there, you know, I mean, what's really down there to get? You know,
That's right.
stuff made out of porcelain and plates and all that stuff, that'd be really good, but there's just not much left down there anymore, you know, except the steering wheel.
I think that I mean, this is just my opinion, okay?
Everyone's
it
just
is-
having their opinion, Joe. Yours is as
Okay,
good as anyone
I'm
else's,
just
right?
gonna state my opinion. I think that the most valuable things down there are the personal items.
Yeah.
When I was going through the museum in Las Vegas, I think that the most poignant things that you see are the personal items, the things that can be connected to the people. So where are those things? They're in the leather bags, the leather
Yeah.
suitcases, the things that were preserved. So to me, those are the most valuable things. The things that
Personal things,
preserve
yeah.
history, the things that that make you speak that person's name again that may not have ever been spoken again, ever on this earth. Because their bodies were most likely not recovered. There were only like, what, 300 people recovered out of 1,496. So I think anything that you bring up that's going to have you speak somebody's name that wouldn't have ever been spoken again on this earth are probably the most valuable things that you can bring up from the Titanic. That's just my personal opinion. So,
it actually
and those
was,
things
wasn't it? 1,496. It was too, wasn't it? And there was, I don't know,
330 people recovered.
712 picked up by Carpathia. And really, those who went into the water, I don't know, 1,050 or something.
1,496. So, like, there's, over like, 1,000 to 1,100 people that, were never properly buried. All their families that never got any closure. There's still descendants out there that they don't know what happened to their relatives. All they know is they died on the Titanic. If you recovered something that belonged to that person, that could connect them, and just say, this belonged to this person, and every time somebody walks past that and sees their name on it and remembers that person, that's a memorial to them. They don't have a grave. They don't have a headstone. They have nothing. Bring something up that can be just, a memorial for that person forever, when they don't have anything else ever anywhere on this earth. I think that's the most valuable thing that can be brought up. Forget about the gold, forget about the plates, forget about, those kind of things. I think that's the most valuable thing.
Well, what about going down and grabbing some of those mail sacks?
Some of the what?
Mail sacks.
I had actually an interesting conversation with Bill Sauter about that one time. Because I said, I think it'd be neat to recover, some of the mail. And he said, what do you do with it? If you bring the mail up, you have to deliver it. I was like, oh, because it's U.S. mail. Some of it's U.S. mail. Dan's going to say goodnight to everybody. He has to get up early for work. And I'm going to have to bow out here in just a minute. But
we'll just give it 5 minutes and then we'll all call it quits. All right, Joe.
Okay. So we're going to sign off here in just a minute. But Bill Sauter really brought up an interesting, point there. It was in another show that we did. So I was like, oh, because the mail sacks are within sight, in a few areas. So if you bring those up though, but what do you do with the mail? Because according to, U.S. law, you have to deliver the mail. So who does that go to? It doesn't really belong to RMS Titanic Inc. because wouldn't that trump their salvage rights? Literally something that belongs to the U.S. government. It has to be delivered to who it's addressed to. I mean, that just brings up this whole mess, because if you could determine who that mail belongs to, then it has to be delivered to that person or to that person's descendants.
No, I don't really know. I mean,
I don't have an answer for that myself, but maybe it's just. I mean, even if the mail's even legible anymore, I mean, it might have all been soaked, and we know paper has.
They were just in sort of bags or something. Exactly. Just the bugs probably would have eaten it. They weren't in sort of satchels, big thick leather satchels. So they'd probably all be going down or something, So, but I don't know. When you're down there, they can go down and have a look. They've got this new toy they've got. Just lower it down the hole, have a look. I'd do that on the last day in case you lose it.
They know, where some of the mailbags are, and it is accessible. They are accessible, and they're reachable and accessible without doing damage to the wreck. But there's always been that dilemma of, if we bring these up, if the mail is legible, whose is it? What do you do with it? It
still belongs to British Post Office. It's Royal Mail. It's not American.
Well, if it's Royal Mail, but it was going to America and it's addressed to U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
And
it's
it's Royal
got,
Mail. So I mean, well, who does it belong to then? Does it go back to
yeah,
Britain?
but after a certain period of
Go back
time,
to the
anything,
US?
even on a wreck, it's considered
Mhm.
abandoned. I mean, after 110 years, you're not going to go down and check up, you know, who owns this and who's that, and go knocking on the door and say, "I'm sorry, here's a ladder." You know, I do understand what Bill's saying. You're better off not getting them. It would just
See, it
open
just
Pandora's
opens up a
box.
fresh can of worms, you know, a technicality, you know,
I don't know. Yeah, anyway, so
and like some of the stuff
anyway,
and
guys, yeah, I
like
better go because boss
they were
wants to use
carrying
the computer
cargo. Like,
behind me.
who does the cargo belong to? If you start bringing up cargo,
Yeah, we'll just go down. As I said before, eventually somebody is going to go illegally go out there and start grabbing stuff. And there's
yeah.
a lot of very, very rich people, and they don't all live in the Western world.
Hmm.
And they could easily sort of go out there one day and whatever. I mean, they say that if somebody's out there and over the wreck for more than 24 hours, they know they're there. I'm not
Hmm.
sure about that. You know, I don't know. I just think, you know, I'd rather remember Titanic as it was and not as it is.
Hmm.
That's all. That's
It's
just
still
what my opinion
beautiful
is.
the way it is. I mean, I still see the beauty in it, you know, the way it is. Um, the way Ken Marshall paints it, the way that the photographs, I mean, even behind me, it's still, I think, just beautiful. There's still beauty in it. Um, the sea life on it, you know, that's made it its home. I think it's still beautiful. The way the rusticles hang off of it, it almost kind of looks like it's crying. Still think it's pretty.
Oh, I like that. That's very good. The rusticles, just like it's still going. Never
Mhm.
thought about that. Nice one, Joe.
Hmm.
I never thought of, yeah, I never thought about that. It looks like it's still going. I'd still grab the anchors off it. I would. It's
Again,
terrible.
Steve Hall and Armis Titanic Reflections don't always agree.
Well, I
I
just
think
think that you don't need an anchor on a ship already on the bottom, do you?
no, but that's the way it looks. I don't know.
I don't know. This wouldn't be hard, would it? Just fall down, grab it.
That would probably make the whole thing wrong.
I'm not saying somebody would do it legally. I'm just saying somebody illegally could do
Yes, somebody could do it illegally, and somebody could
That's
illegally
right.
take the propellers. But let's hope that doesn't happen.
it. You know, you'd only probably need 48 hours out there to get the three of them.
Oh my gosh, that
Time
makes
for
me
us to go
nervous.
to bed, eh?
Yeah.
Yes,
It's
on
been
that
great
note,
talking to you, Graham.
Time for us to let Dan go. I think he's got to go, doesn't he?
Oh, look at him. He's fallen asleep there.
Dan's gonna
Well,
run
it's
tomorrow.
been
I've got a big day tomorrow too. Graham, thank you so much for joining us.
well,
You're welcome.
you're very welcome. Thank you very much for having me on the 401. It's been nice to talk to you and to Dan and to Steve and all. Thank you for all of the listeners and viewers out there who've sent in questions and comments. I hope
Yes,
I've
thank you.
helped out in some way to enlighten everyone's day.
That's right.
Um, and Graham, if there's ever anything Dan and I can do to help you in any way, you know, shape or form, we'll be happy to. We'll try to distribute your book as much as we can and promote it. This has been great. You're welcome to join us anytime. We're here like off and on all the time. If you ever see us on live, you're welcome to send me a link and you can join us and just
Thank you.
chat away with us. We welcome you guys all the time. Steve's always in that. He's like, hey, put me in.
I'll be happy to, as I say, sit in on another session if you want me to come on again and talk more
Sure,
about
absolutely.
books
Anytime,
and
anytime.
whatever. I'll be available. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Good.
So,
You've done it once. You might as well come back and do it again.
yeah, that's
Sure.
And
definitely.
it's only 10:30, 11:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon over there, Graham. It's not as if it's 4 o'clock in the morning for us.
No, that's right. I'll give a plug here, Joe, if I may, for Steve's website provides the fastest download of my PDF. And it's available on Bill's and Paul's websites in the USA and England, respectively. But I'm pretty sure when I tested it out on Steve's, it took me 35 seconds to open the file, and then it's an easy download from there. So your website is something good, Steve. Thank you.
It's on a server, and the server's in another room.
Right.
So if you want it quick, go to Steve's server. Steve's now speak two from my mouth and a shower. But no, it's downloads pretty quick. So I don't know what the download speed is, but if you want it really quick, Steve Hall, whatever it is, I don't know, .nl or something.
Yeah, I'm sure you can find the links, Joe. I can either send them to you, or the other two ones work perfectly well as well. Bill and Paul have been very generous with their websites, and they've made it available. So I'm very grateful to the three of them for at least giving me a bit of, to get it out to the big wide world. It's because it's not a published book, it doesn't get the mainstream advertising and promotion that publishers are able to afford. So I'm very grateful for those who have made it available via their website.
You're welcome, Graeme. And the only other suggestion for a guest I would like to put to you, Joe, is Dr. Paul Lee.
Okay. All right, well,
I'd like to see Paul Lee. If we can catch up with him, he'd be really good to talk with Paul. He's off chasing ghosts, I think, in pubs or something at the moment. So he's done 2 books. I've got them. They're really, really good. So
yeah,
all right.
Paul's done some seriously good research as well onto a whole raft of topics in that Titanic.
Well, he's top of the pile. Him and Sam Halpern on the California mystery. I mean, those guys don't come any better than that, and you can't do any better than that. You know, it'd be great to see them do a book together. I don't know what Sam's doing at the moment. I don't know what Paul's doing, so I have no idea really. So we'll see what happens with all of it. Who knows publishing books? I got no idea really. Anyway, all right, guys.
All right.
Well, this has been a machine behind me.
Yeah.
And there's my bookcase behind me over there, Graeme, one of about 5 of them.
See, yeah, like me, I've got 8 in my house. I'm going to have 9 if I get a new one built.
Yeah, I think you might have seen photos I put on my Facebook page or something, whatever. Me and Rusty.
Very
They're
nice.
all in there, and then there's some in the lounge room, and there's they're all over the place. So yeah,
good.
But I've still got Hold Down sitting over there also, Joe, to send over to you.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe, for coordinating this session today.
All right, take care.
Thanks everybody for joining us.
Say hello to your mum from all of us, Graeme.
Thanks very much. I will.
All right, you take care.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve. I'll see you guys tomorrow with Cliff Ismay. Tomorrow afternoon, I think it's 4 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll see you then. Take care. Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dan. See y'all tomorrow.
There you go.
Bye-bye.